Hilton brings you new ways to stay. With experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
The Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, the Cloak of Invisibility. Together they make the Deathly Hallows. Together they make one Master of Death. The last will and testament of Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore.
Do not pity the dead, Harry. Pity the living. And above all those who live without love.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hogwarts, a podcast. Today we're covering Chapter 31, The Battle of Hogwarts. That's a chapter title. We have Elizabeth with us.
Hi everyone.
And Molly.
Hello.
So I'm excited to get into this chapter. I feel like I'm saying this more and more often now, but I love this chapter and I'm excited about it because it's a Battle of Hogwarts. How can you not be hyped for the Battle of Hogwarts? So we obviously start where we left off, which is they are forming their battle plans. Everybody's meeting in the Great Hall, and I like this line that they describe with McGonagall, where every eye, living and dead, is fixed upon McGonagall.
I thought that was interesting too, that the ghosts chose to be part of this. I'm like, you can't do anything, you can't die again, but you're still part of Hogwarts, so you clearly care to, be here for it.
It's their home.
Yeah.
We'll get into some ghost talk later, but that must be a helpless feeling.
Yeah. Especially
having such of a tie to the place and knowing that absolute devastation is about to come onto it, it must be a helpless feeling.
I mean, if the whole castle got destroyed, where would they go? This is, like you said, this is their home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they just live in the rubble, which is really sad.
That'd be really sad. Remember, the Great Hall used to be right there. I flew through that wall.
Right?
Myrtle's still sitting on the one toilet left.
And that's like water.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to imagine Ben's just at his desk.
Oh.
Still teaching. The school's gone, but I have papers to grade. That would be my life.
Still sitting
I love
there.
it. We started out this chapter with a Myrtle and a Binns reference. This is good. Love it. So, the remaining teachers are standing behind McGonagall, which includes Firenze.
Yes, he's still there.
Firenze is still there. So, do you think... It doesn't, I guess, specifically say he was an active teacher. Do we think he was actively teaching when Snape and the Carrows were running the school? Because I can't imagine they would love a centaur being a faculty member.
Yeah.
It seems like an odd fit.
Very sus.
I feel like they probably did. It was just like divination is pushed under the rug, so if there's two teachers, whatever.
I could see it being fun for the Carrows to try to send friends back into the forest and be like, you're on your own. Deal with it. I could see them being dark enough to do that, but...
I wonder if they're intelligent enough to do that. Like, are they really recognizing the politics of the situation here? I don't think they do.
Probably not. It'd be interesting if Firenze, ran off into the mountains.
Oh, yeah.
Like when Hagrid bolted, maybe he went with, or something of that nature, but...
I wonder how centaurs would be in the mountains. Would they be like little mountain goats?
Well, they probably have a better view of the stars without the trees over the top.
That's true.
Yeah.
But anyway. So they set up the evacuation led by Filch and Madame Pomfrey. And Ernie Macmillan from Hufflepuff, the first one to speak amongst the students, asks about staying to fight.
Yeah, Ernie.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Molly's Hufflepuffs.
Yeah.
I do think it is something to be said that a Hufflepuff is the first one being like, wait, what if we want to fight?
Heck yeah.
And a prefect. Right? Like, he was a prefect for
Yep.
Hufflepuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Because
So
we're loyal.
it's because your house mascot is a badger, and those things are not any fun.
Yep.
Those things are vicious. Do not mess with
Loyal
the badgers.
and vicious.
I love that Ravenclaw asking, like, well, wait, what about our stuff? Because I would 100% be like, what's the logistics of when I get my stuff back? Because I want to know.
I mean, that's a fair question.
Yes.
It's also fair for them to be like, no one cares, get out.
Yes.
The Slytherins obviously ask about Snape, which is, to their credit, also a fair question. McGonagall responds with, he has done a bunk. The definition which is made a hurried or furtive departure or escape. 3 houses erupt in cheers at that announcement. And at this time, the cheers suddenly get doused by Voldy, who speaks a warning. And the warning is, I know you are preparing to fight. Your efforts are futile. You cannot fight me. I do not want to kill you. I have great respect for the teachers of Hogwarts. I do not want to spill magical blood. And then he asks, give me Harry Potter, and none shall be harmed. I shall leave the school untouched. You shall be rewarded. What do we think about Voldy's little speech to everyone?
It must be so terrifying to hear his voice for the first time as a student. Like, you've known of Voldemort as this mass murderer out there, and it's that fear of the evil, but when you're like, he's close enough where he can penetrate the castle and all the magic and get his voice heard very clearly, it's like, death is literally at our doorstep, and now what do we do?
It said it reverberates, like, around the Great Hall. So that must be, like, right by you, like, all around you.
Surround sound?
And, yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a spell he used.
I did wonder, like, I mean, if he's far enough away, but he can make it sound so clear, he had to go both distance, which I know with magic doesn't mean as much of a thing, but through the castle enchantments. I don't know how he managed to do that, but that's pretty intense magic.
It is intense magic, and I liked your point about this is probably the first time, not even just the students, but probably most people
Yeah.
have heard the man himself.
Because he lives in the shadows.
And if you hear him speak, you're probably not living long enough to do anything about it. I think it's an interesting speech.
I do like that he respects the teachers.
I mean, Hogwarts was his home, too. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about a mass murderer, like a serial killer to the nth degree. Do you think he's genuine when he says, I don't want to harm the school, I don't want to harm the teachers, I have respect for the teachers of Hogwarts? Do you think he's genuine, or do you think he's just giving you a line?
To a degree. I think that he has a problem spilling magical pure blood.
Yeah. I feel like he respects the teachers because he wanted a teaching job. So those would have been like his co-workers. It's a profession he respects. But he wants it under his complete control, and I'm going to teach you the stuff that I want you to learn, which is probably not going to be the curriculum that it was under Dumbledore.
Right.
Well, he clearly had a ton of respect for Charity Burbage, who was a teacher at Hogwarts.
Muggle studies.
Muggle studies, though.
True.
Yeah.
But a witch who taught at Hogwarts. Didn't matter.
Yeah.
So, Pansy Parkinson stands up and screams to grab Harry Potter. The Gryffindors, Hufflepuffs, and Ravenclaws all stand between Harry and the Slytherins. McGonagall then thanks Pansy for her comments and instructs her to be the first one to leave.
They also all pulled their wands out on her, which was a detail I had forgotten about. I just thought they stood up. They were like, nope, we're threatening you with our wands. How dare you?
Yeah. It's again one of those things where I think people lose track because people have this mindset of Gryffindor that is so firm. And here you have all of the Ravenclaws and all of the Hufflepuffs also doing the very same thing. Mm-hmm. And I think it's an important detail to note. Mm-hmm. So at that point, McGonagall begins the evacuations. The Slytherin table ends up being completely deserted, which we'll talk about in a second. A number of old Ravenclaws remain, which a number of could be a varied number, as we've discussed.
There's not consistency in numbers with our students here.
Zero consistency. So who knows? That could have been 5. That could have been 50. I'm not sure. But a number of older Ravenclaws remain. Even more Hufflepuffs stayed behind. So at least you get the designation that more Hufflepuffs than Ravenclaws and Slytherins stayed behind to fight.
Go Hufflepuff.
Hufflepuff's getting a lot of cred here. Another important number to note is half of the Gryffindors remain in their seats to stay behind. And that's another thing where I think most people think all Gryffindors stay behind, or most Gryffindors stay behind. Not true. Half.
I like McGonagall coming in and be like, no, get out of here. You are like in your second year.
Yeah, so she's specifically saying 7th years, or I guess older 60 years, are allowed to stay, and that is it.
So, of age, yeah.
Most of you should really be leaving.
Yeah.
Only those select students should stay behind, but obviously we get the extremes of Slytherin and we get the extremes of Gryffindor. Why do you think those extremes exist? Why do you think there wasn't one Slytherin staying behind? Because, just based on odds, there has to be at least one Slytherin that's either empathizes with the cause of anti-Voldy, or truly believes Voldy needs to go, or whatever, or just wants to stay behind because they have friends in one of the other houses, they have family that's been threatened by Voldy. Like, there has to be at least one Slytherin that would like to see the downfall of Voldy. So why does not one stay?
I wish some had stayed. I feel like that would have been way more realistic.
Good redemption.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you were a Slytherin, though, and you just saw the entire school, which again could be anywhere from like 60 to 300 people, who knows, all stand up against a member of your house with all their wands drawn, that could be incredibly intimidating. And you were like, I don't know if they would actually accept me and think that I'm truly on their side, or I'm like a double agent or something like that. And then I could also see if your entire house is starting to leave, there's that peer pressure of like, I am also supposed to go with them because McGonagall just said all of you literally leave. So if you were told literally to leave, everyone else is leaving, and you're also like, I don't want to die, makes sense that they would go. For the Slytherins, at least.
So is it fair to say that peer pressure, both inter-house amongst the Slytherins and then peer pressure of the other houses, kind of being somewhat threatening towards your general point of view or circumstance, let's say? So peer pressure, both sides of it.
I can see it.
Yeah.
And then with the Gryffindors, I mean, I was trying to think about it. I'm like, yeah, why do we always imagine more Gryffindors than what actually is described? But I was thinking about it, like, Harry hasn't actually been here for an entire year. So the first years don't know him at all. The second years and the third years probably have such a little connection to him. Like, maybe they've seen him and said hi, but he hasn't given them the time of day. The only classes I think that would really have the loyalty to Harry would be 5th years and up. Because if you're in a 5th year, you were a 4th year when Harry was in his 6th year. So maybe you joined the DA, maybe you played Quidditch with him, whatever. But anyone younger than that, they're like, it's Harry Potter, he's a famous person, he's also undesirable number 1, and Voldemort wants to kill him. I should probably not hang around him if I don't want to die.
Plus, too, I mean, at that point, like, your magical abilities are not going to be up to a Death Eater snuff.
I could do Wingardium Leviosa against, like, Avada Kedavra.
Right. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, if I was that young, I'd be terrified. I'd be like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what a lot of people mistake, too, is because you're in Gryffindor, therefore you're brave, therefore you have to stay.
Right.
Being brave does not mean run towards death.
Right.
It means, like, especially when you're 11, 12, 13 years old. You've barely hit your teenage years.
Let the professionals do the job.
Yeah, I'd be afraid of messing stuff up.
Yeah.
You know?
Getting in someone's way, or just, like, this is war. Like, they're prepping. And we get this comment later about Harry just standing there and being like, this is nuts.
Yeah.
And just taking in McGonagall speaking about evacuating students. We're going to get to Kingsley's speech here, which is setting up the literal battle plans. And it's like, this is crazy right now.
Yeah.
Like, we're doing this? It's nuts.
Right.
And that's Harry Potter, who's done this 1 billion times already.
I've had this thought before with other series too, but I always think it's fun to think of the perspective that the room must have on everything that has ever happened in this room.
Oh.
And like we've had like, you know, the opening speeches, and then we had like the funeral for Cedric, and we've had the dances and the feasts and all that, and now it's battle plan. Like, the history of Hogwarts, literally Hogwarts of history, like, it would be such a fascinating chapter just to see these big events that have happened in the Great Hall.
Well, forget a chapter. There needs to be a whole second edition of Hogwarts of history, just entitled The Harry Potter Years.
Right. Like, imagine doing a time turner in the Great Hall and just seeing the history flash by and be like, oh, there they are in their sleeping bags when Black was in the castle, and then there's the little Halloween party with the troll, and like...
Yeah.
It'd just be super fun.
That'd be cool.
So like I said, Kingsley does address the crowd, which, let's just take that for a second. You have McGonagall, who's essentially the administrator, on deck, basically, who's like the lead administrator left. And she cedes to Kingsley. And they're like, you know what, Kingsley, you need to speak. What deference and respect they give to Kingsley to have him come up and start issuing these. And when we think of Kingsley, obviously he's had some of the tougher jobs to do as an Auror. And I think he's viewed by the Aurors, by the Order of the Phoenix, and by people in the know, like McGonagall, like a Flitwick, as someone who's capable and able and just has that leader quality. Is just the vibe I'm getting from what other characters view him as.
Harry has also talked before about his calming voice. So I could see this as like, okay, yes, he should be terrified because you literally just heard Voldemort's voice, but we have a plan. This is what it's going to be. Let's do it. We can succeed. We got this, guys.
Yeah.
So the battle plan is agreed to by teachers and the Order of the Phoenix. And those battle plans are Flitwick, McGonagall, and Sprout will take a group of fighters to the 3 highest towers, which are Ravenclaw, Astronomy, and Gryffindor. Remus, Arthur, and Kingsley will take groups out into the grounds. Fred and George will organize defenses of the entrances and passageways into the school. And those leaders are to start to wrangle and organize their troops.
Okay, question. What is in the 4th tower?
It's the North Tower, and I think that's where Trelawney is. Why they don't include it here? They say take fighters to the 3 highest. So maybe the North Tower is just a little shorter and thus less strategically valuable. Okay. So if I'm setting up this battle plan, I like how Kingsley's doing it. Where, it's like basic Defense 101 of you...
High ground.
High ground, exactly. You send some of your most skilled people up, so it's harder to take them out, and they have long range that they can do from their vantage points, and then you're sending people into the grounds because Hogwarts is more than just the castle. It's the grounds, which are somewhat expansive. So you don't want the Death Eaters to penetrate the walls first.
Come up and knock on the door.
Hello. We're here.
The only thing I would say, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, is Sprout being in one of the towers. Does that fit for you guys? We don't know how great of a spellcaster she is, but her herbology classrooms are on the ground level, and I think are out into the grounds. So wouldn't it be more beneficial for her and her expertise to be on the grounds?
I could see switching her with Lupin, maybe.
That would be fine. I could do that.
Because then she could be close to her plants and then go set up a perimeter with various plants.
Right?
That are, like, aggressive ones. And
Well, she leaves and whispers like different plants that she wants to use in her. In the last chapter, she's like snargaluffs and venomous tentaculas, and they'll love this devil's snare. Yes.
I know I haven't played the Hogwarts Legacy game, but the image of just fighting with plants to me is just really funny.
Like throwing an angry cabbage.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
My cabbages.
If someone sets fire to the herbology classroom and Sprout yells, "My cabbages!" I would love that!
With my mandrakes!
Great Avatar reference.
You're welcome.
As far as the others are concerned, I love Flitwick up in a tower. I love McGonagall up in a tower. I think Kingsley out in the grounds is great because I think he is your premier combatant.
Yeah.
I think he's like the top of the top tier.
And Fred and George doing the passage is just perfection.
Yeah.
Perfect.
No notes on that one. Arthur, though, going into the grounds. How do we feel about Arthur going into the grounds?
I think it fits.
My thought on Arthur is I know he's an accomplished wizard. I know he is. And I love Arthur. But I don't, for whatever reason, I don't view him in the same...
Because you just think of him as dad.
Dad, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I don't view him as I'm gonna duel you now kind of guy, but...
Yeah, but I feel like dads have a certain amount of, like, protection for their kids.
It's fair.
You know? So I could see where Arthur is...
He's got a lot to protect.
Yeah.
Maybe also because it's been so long since he's been at Hogwarts. Like... I know you generally remember your school whenever you go back and visit, but the grounds is just the grounds, so...
You don't have to have an intimate knowledge of the castle.
Yeah, you know, like, I mean, I don't think he's been doing duty... Like, I don't think he did patrol duty last year in Hogwarts, but, like, Lupin and... Well, Kingsley didn't, but, like, Tonks did, and...
Lupin should have a pretty intimate knowledge.
Oh, he should have.
Yeah.
Given he's the author of a pretty famous document, he should have very intimate knowledge of that castle.
Yes.
But
Do you think he had a problem with, like, Fred and George, you know the passageways? You're welcome.
Harry searches for the Horcrux after McGonagall's like, shouldn't you be doing something?
I love her reminder of that. Like, Potter, do your homework. Go.
So thoughts start buzzing frantically without Ron or Hermione there to kind of guide his frantic thinking. And he starts by beginning with one thought. One true fact. Voldy thought I'd go to Ravenclaw Tower. With that being the case, he knows for a fact now it's the diadem. So then he thinks about the fact that no one's seen it in living memory, and he's like, oh, that's a challenge. What do we think about just him dealing with thoughts buzzing and him being able to be like, okay, breathe. What's something I know is true? And I think that is a really good self-therapy technique. When you're like, okay, I got all this going on in my brain. I need to focus. Let's focus on it. Like, I think it is a thing in therapy where they're like, okay, what color is the table? It's blue. Okay,
Yeah.
we know the
Or
color
like
is blue.
count 5 things or this and then 4 and like you talk yourself back down.
And start like slowing down your thinking process because you're focusing on true, absolute things.
Right. Like, find 5 things you can hear.
Yeah.
Find 5 things you can smell. Find 5 things you can see.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he said he first checked the Marauders map for Ron and Hermione because he was like, I can't think without them. I can't think without them. So then, yeah, him being like, whew, okay, fact. That was really, really good.
I think it's an unbelievable example of how Harry has grown and matured.
Especially in chaos. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to think in chaos, and he does a really good job of it.
You could make the argument, though, that Harry lives in chaos. Like this, like the Happy Gilmore kind of thing. Like, this is his happy place. So, like, or like Bane in the Dark Knight Rises. He's like, I was born in darkness.
I was born in chaos.
You think darkness is your home? It's actually mine.
Oh, man.
Wow, I'm just throwing out pop culture references.
Let's see how many we can come up with.
Yeah.
Right?
But anyway, Harry fights through the chaos. which includes one Zachariah Smith bowling over first years in order to leave. We hyped up the Hufflepuffs earlier. This is not a glorious example of a Hufflepuff.
No, it's not.
He has zero loyalty these first years.
I just like
chucking him out of the way.
I just like the image of him punting children out of the way. It's very nice.
As humorous as that Zachariah Smith comment may be, he does run into a lot of younger students who are crying because they don't know how to cope with what is going on. They don't know where maybe their friends or siblings or other family members may be in this whole process. They're scared. They're getting moved. Remember, this is happening relatively late at night. They were all in their dormitories getting ready for bed, if not already in bed.
Yeah, they only have until midnight, and it's like already 12:30.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're disoriented is minimally. Harry does find nearly headless Nick. And immediately is like, hey, Nick, I need you. What about this Ravenclaw ghost?
Shouldn't he know who the Ravenclaw ghost is by now? Like, I feel like these ghosts are the mascots of each house. When you think, like, oh yeah, there's the Bloody Baron, he's Slytherin. We got nearly headless Nick. Like,
I feel like the Bloody Baron is a presence. So, the Bloody Baron is a presence. Nearly headless Nick is uber social with the Gryffindors.
I mean, the Fat Friar is pretty, like, nice and happy to
He's
deal
visible.
with.
He's visible. The question then becomes, who is this ghost of Ravenclaw Tower? And Nearly Headless Nick says, it's the Grey Lady. And then he goes, oh wait, she's over there. Finds her in the crowd. And then Harry eventually catches up with the Grey Lady as the Grey Lady spots him down a corridor and is like, nope, and then tries to get away.
That is the presence I would want. That's the energy I would be as a ghost. I'm like, I don't want to deal with people. I didn't want to deal with people when I was alive. I don't want to deal with people when I'm dead. Go away.
She assumes Harry is after the diadem for more vain reasons. She's like, Harry, I know you might be needing a little extra wisdom in this circumstance, but I don't think that's going to help you all this much. And Harry's like, look, I'm not trying to get the diadem for some extra wisdom. I'm not trying to get it for wealth. I'm not trying to get it for prestige.
For better grades.
But then Harry questions if she's actually interested in defending the school and defeating Voldy. And the Grey Lady becomes offended by this question. She gets very thrown off by it and is like, how dare you even suggest such a thing? Mm-hmm. And then she reveals that she's actually Helena Ravenclaw, Rowena Ravenclaw's daughter.
I love this part. Like, the fact that there's literally that connection to one of the founders in the school still is really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
This whole part's so cool. It was so cool when I first read it.
She still thinks that Harry wants to wear the diadem. And
I'm just picturing Harry in a tiara.
He would rock.
That should be a cosplay.
Actually, you're right. That would be a really fun cosplay. Not gonna lie, that would actually be a really good one. Harry thinks she probably hasn't told anything of value to Flitwick or Albus, so he's like, why does this even matter? You're not. If you didn't tell them, you're not going to tell me anyway.
He walks away very depressed and hopeless, which I feel like that body language is really what pushed her to do what she just is about to do.
Well, the fact that he asked, he called her out on defending the school, and then when she said she's not going to help, he's like, you know what? Fine, I'll go away. I'll just do this on my own, and he walks away. Which I don't think the students previously that have questioned her about the diadem gave up so easily.
Students don't give up easily when they want your help with something. They just badger you like crazy.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think that is the inciting moment where you're like, oh, this kid might actually be genuine and is not trying to just get the diadem. So she suddenly says, she breaks into basically her whole backstory and says that she stole her mother's diadem to become cleverer and more important than her mother. Rowena concealed the loss of the diadem from the other founders. She eventually fell very gravely ill, even, and ends up sending the Bloody Baron to go find Helena so she could see her daughter one last time. The Bloody Baron loved Helena, and despite Helena turning him down multiple times, he goes on this journey to find the Ravenclaw daughter. When Helena turns him down yet again, I'm not going back with you, I'm not seeing my mother, he becomes violent, and furious at the refusal, jealous of her freedom, he stabs Helena. Overcome with remorse for killing her, he kills himself, and thus wears chains as an act of penance. And then she adds, as he should. So let's get into all this ghost talk. Let's get into the drama.
I have lots of thoughts.
First of all, I just love the fact that knowing this backstory now, and that the Bloody Baron is the Slytherin house ghost, is just wonderful. Mm-hmm. Like, just wonderful that he.
And that he's connected to another house ghost,
right?
Like, I've always thought of them as all separate, but now it's like, oh, we had an intimate relationship thing. Right. I mean, or at least he tried to, but
a stage 5 clinger.
Yeah.
So, okay, can we talk about this for a second? Because yes. But, like, how awkward is that you now have to spend eternity
right
with someone who is that attached to you and also killed you, and you know they killed themselves over killing you? That's a lot of ghost drama.
Well, that's one of my thoughts, one of my questions of, like, why would either of them desire to become a ghost?
Thought it was, like, because you're afraid of death, or because you're very attached to, like, the place that you were murdered.
Or the Wizarding World said if you had that, like, unfinished business, too. Yeah. So my question is her unfinished business, like, because she hasn't fixed her relationship with her mother yet? Yeah. Or what? So that was one thought.
If that's hers, do you think the Bloody Baron's unfinished business would be getting a resolution with the Grey Lady?
Possibly.
Probably.
Could you imagine that? And that's why he, like, wears these chains all around as a sign of penance, just trying to get resolution with her so he can move on. She seems like one that holds quite the grudge.
I mean.
One of the things the Wizarding World said when I was doing my deep dive on ghosts was that they get stuck on their final grudges. So, like, the way...
Oh, well, there you go.
The way Nick always talks about, like, oh, I'm nearly headless. Oh, I could have been in the headless hunt if they hadn't botched my execution. It was like, oh, yeah, you get obsessed with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, all my various other thoughts with that. Okay, so, first and foremost, the idea that Ravenclaw was jealous of her mother very much reminded me of Ron's jealousy of Harry. Where it's like, he's getting all this attention, my mother's getting all this attention, so I kind of act out a little bit, which felt very realistic to me of, like, she's a young girl acting out against her mother, and then she throws a little temper tantrum and goes off to Albania and refuses to come back. Like, that feels realistic to me in terms of mother-daughter relationship.
I wonder why she chose Albania.
Get as far away as possible, maybe?
Well, since these two, we have the backstory, I wanted to also look into the backstory of the other two ghosts, which I thought was fun. Nearly Headless Nick, obviously, we know, like, how he got executed, but leading up to it, when he was alive, he served in the court of King Louis VII, and he did a beautification spell for some woman in the court, like, her teeth were all crooked, so the spell didn't go well, and he gave her tusks, which led to his execution in 1492. So wow. I thought that was fun, both the fact that it went badly, but also the fact that they clearly knew he was a wizard and didn't give him the chance. I'm assuming they gave him the chance to fix it, but just, like, you made a mistake so poorly that it hurt this woman's feelings that it was like, you die. And then the Hufflepuff ghost, Fat Friar, he was executed during the Founders' time, so he was, like, one of the first ghosts to go to Hogwarts. They said he was too good for curing people. Like, he had such a success rate that people got suspicious of him. And then he also would make rabbits appear out of the communion wine cups. And they were like, that's not natural. So they killed him. And he apparently has resented the fact that he never got to become a cardinal in the Catholic Church. So maybe that's his grudge that he's holding on to. So I thought those are interesting. And then a whole other thing that I found really fascinating was the Wizarding World mentioned how because the Baron killed the Grey Lady, technically he could have made a Horcrux here. Like he split his soul, so killing her would have given him the opportunity. But this might be our only example that we know of where there's that remorse that puts the soul back together again, because he was very upset after he killed her and was regretting it.
It's a good point.
So they said that because he was able to reunite his soul, there was that whole follow-up of, it might kill you.
Overwhelming remorse.
It did, through suicide. But they also said that because he felt that remorse and reunited his soul in that way, that's the only reason he was able to become a ghost. Because if his soul had been split, he wouldn't have been able to have that magic to come back.
That makes sense.
One.
Yeah,
I was like, that's crazy. That's so cool.
Yeah, that is a really cool breakdown.
And he continues to be a stage 5 clinger.
Well, just imagine those awkward interactions at a death day party.
Or pass around the hallway and you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine her just staying up in the tower and him down in the dungeons. But, that's awkward.
Uh-huh.
No, you're telling me
this castle is not big enough for the two of us.
No student, no teacher ever picked up on some inter-ghost, awkwardness.
Well, they're always cold, those ghosts.
Yeah, that's true.
I never see you two in the same part of the... Or did something happen between you two? Just gonna guess. There's a couples therapy that we need to get into.
Yes.
So speaking of this, obviously we've kind of made a little bit of fun of the Bloody Baron, but he's obviously a villain in this story. But that being said, I don't think Helena comes off all that great either in this story.
No.
She's very haughty, very full of herself.
And feels like her mother was wronging her and then stole the most precious item to become cleverer than her and more popular and more famous.
She made the comment how her mom hid it from the other founders, which I get the impression she took as, well, mom's trying to cover up for herself and still seem so great. I took it more as mom doesn't want people to bash Helena, right? How could your daughter have done that?
The betrayal.
It's the betrayal. Yeah. It's embarrassing to think about, and you still love your daughter, so you don't want to necessarily call her out in this way. So yeah, the fact that she still has the same bratty tone to her, I just get that sense it's again because the ghosts hold on to their grudges and they don't really progress or mature.
I wonder if a person like Albus Dumbledore, who had his head in the sky, always looking to the next thing, always looking for the next goal, the next achievement. I'm at least talking about when he went to school there. Mm. And then maybe as a headmaster, you're communicating with the ministry all the time. You had, Grindelwald. You had all kinds of things going on during his tenure while he was a staff member at Hogwarts. And I wonder, the vibe I get from the Grey Lady and the vibe I get from Nearly Headless Nick is students don't often think of them at all, in general, unless they specifically need something, which then generally annoys them. And I would just wonder if ghosts tend to be just an accessory of Hogwarts and no one thinks of them as an actual, a part of the castle.
I think the living are just self-centered. Because, nobody wants to think about their own deaths. And talking to a ghost is facing your death in a way of knowing, eventually this will be my demise and I could choose this path or I could just go on. So if you're 12, 13, 14 years old and you see a ghost and you have transfiguration homework you have to do and a potions essay to write, you're not really thinking, what's going on here?
Let me have a long, in-depth conversation with Nearly Headless Nick about how he can't eat food.
Well, for you, being a Hufflepuff, if I know that the Friar was really good at healing people, that could be really interesting. Like, wouldn't you want to pick his...
It actually would be. I would seriously probably be interested in
I
it.
wanted to talk to the ghosts, but I just feel like maybe they're so far removed from their lives that they almost don't think of themselves as that person anymore. Like, I mean, the Great Lady said something like, oh, when I was alive, I was Helena Ravenclaw. She didn't say, like, I am Helena Ravenclaw. So her verb usage there was interesting to me. I just don't know if they'd also want to talk about their life or they more want to talk about their deaths. Because I feel like at least Myrtle was like, no one ever asked me how I died. And then when you do, she's like, ooh, no one ever asked me. Like,
Well, I think, you kind of hit it head on with the whole, like, you're confronted with death. Plus, too, like, they're just creepy and they're cold and,
yeah, they might touch you.
Right. There's generally a creepy connotation with ghosts.
I think they become such a part of the background of your daily life that you kind of get used to them. But like we're saying, you can't directly interact with them either. You can't like bump into them. You can't like whatever. So you concentrate more on like what you're saying, Elizabeth, of like, I have potions class. I got this homework. I have this. My crush is in the next hallway and I want to talk to her, but I don't know how. And like you're so caught up in your day-to-day life that even though there are these ghosts around you, like whatever.
I'm sorry, I was thinking, do you think anyone has ever had a crush on one of the ghosts?
Myrtle.
Wait, do you think Myrtle has a crush on, like, the Bloody Baron? And then goes up to the Great Lady and is like, I don't know why you didn't wanna... Do you think they go on ghost dates? Like, is that a thing?
Your social afterlife is just on point.
Oh, man, there's so much to talk about with ghosts. So she ends up saying... The Grey Lady ends up saying she hid the diadem inside a hollow tree where she was hiding in Albania. And Harry asks if she's told this story to any other student. And she says, only one. He was very flattering, understanding, sympathizing. And Harry thinks that Voldy would understand the desire to possess objects to which he had little right. So Harry even goes a step further and is like, hey, Helena, you're not exactly the greatest person either. You stole your mother's greatest possession to become better than her. Like, you're not... I mean, Harry's calling her out pretty hard here.
Yeah, but I think it's also... He's giving her a little reassurance of like, look, you got tricked by him. You're not the first person in the world ever gotten tricked by him. So... thank you for at least giving me this information because now I can make those connections of, okay, he hid in Albania. We know he's been to Albania. Clearly he got it. And then he hid it in Hogwarts. Possibly the day he interviewed for the Defense Against the Dark Arts position.
I like this usage of using a character in the Grey Lady to... Who else are you going to get this information from? Mm-hmm. You know, like, who else are you going to get detailed information on the diadem when no one else seems to have even heard of the thing, seen the thing? It's not like the cup where Dumbledore had a memory of someone owning it and knew they owned it, or the ring where you've had multiple eyewitness accounts, whether it was from Ogden who saw it, or Morphin who he got a memory from, or all of that kind of stuff. Like, this is harder. And the only person you're going to have is the Grey Lady here, and I kind of like it. So Harry tends to make sense of Voldy's actions, especially hiding the diadem when he came to Hogwarts looking for a job. He's like, hey, wait, this is all clicking into place now. This all makes sense. And Harry ends up leaving the Grey Lady to think about where that Horcrux might be. And he does have a logic to that even. He's like, okay, how can he get from entering the castle to Dumbledore's office and everywhere in between? How can he do that? Because he didn't have a lot of time. Voldy did not have a ton of time here. So Harry traverses through the castle again and comes upon Hagrid. The battle has begun. Hagrid and Fang crash through a window ahead of Harry. And the first casualties of the battle are made apparent It's a couple of gargoyles that guarded the entrance to the staff room.
Real quick, one comment about them coming through the window. I love the fact that he said, we told Guap to, like, bring us to the castle, not to literally shove us through the window, but bless his heart, that is what he did. We got in safely. So Fang looked beyond traumatized.
Poor Fang.
He did the best he could.
Yes.
I do like how one of the gargoyles looks up at Harry and is like, "Oh, don't mind me. I'll just lie here, crumble."
Do you think
it's fine.
Do you think it feels anything, or just like recognizes like I'm not a complete statue anymore?
Couldn't you just do Reparo really quick and get the gargoyle doing what it does?
Yeah.
Like, couldn't you just repair it? Put it back together?
Is it like too far beyond repair? If it becomes dust, is it still?
Or because is it somewhat sentient, so therefore it's not bound by those rules? I don't know how that works.
I don't know, but I also did enjoy the complaining. He was like, here I am on the floor.
Don't mind me. Like Eeyore.
Harry makes a few sudden connections. He sees the stone gargoyle's ugly face, thinks of the ugly Ravenclaw bust in the Lovegood home, thinks of the actual Ravenclaw statue that he just personally viewed a few moments ago, really, in real time here. And then he thinks of the stone warlock that he placed an old tiara on in a certain room that he's very familiar with.
I love this moment because it has the same effect on him that it did when they realized the locket was in Black's house and we threw it away. It was like, yes, you have already had a moment with this thing and you had no idea.
Yep.
That's amazing.
He also goes on to say this room is a secret that Harry and Voldy shared that Albus or Flitwick would have never discovered because they were too good back in the day. They never had anything to hide.
We know Dumbledore knows about the room requirement. Maybe he doesn't know about it when it's like secret storage mode. Maybe he does. But I feel like if he were to actually try to search it for a Horcrux, it'd almost be a waste of his time because it doesn't seem like you can summon Horcruxes. That has been consistent throughout. And if he were to look in the room requirement for it, we know it's basically like this massive hoarder's warehouse. So trying to find a needle in a haystack where you're not even certain that the needle is actually in it in the first place seems like maybe not the best use of his time. That is very limited.
That's fair. Although if he had a time turner stashed somewhere,
that would be different. Maybe there's one inside it. We don't know.
So Harry sets off for the Horcrux location, and this is where Sprout rushes past Neville and 6 others carrying potted plants, wearing earmuffs. And Neville shouts back at them, mandrakes. And my question to you is, are using mandrakes in this battle a good idea?
I like it.
I like it.
I like it a lot.
You have to be very certain with how you're setting this up, because this has a range of effect, and it is a potent weapon. I'll give you that. It is potent, but it doesn't know friend or foe. Like, I mean, it's not like directing its cries at only Death Eaters. Like,
I guess to be fair, we don't know how old they are. I mean, these might be young mandrakes if they're still in the pots that can be carried very quickly by students. I would assume if they're bigger mandrakes, they're going to be like bigger pots. So it could just be like we lob it over the wall, pot smashes, it cracks open, and it's just like, ah! And then just like everyone gets knocked out for a few hours, which would still work.
That'd be effective.
It'd still work because they can run forward and like grab their wands, so when they come out of it again, they don't have any weapons. You do have a point though, like if any of our people come
It's a
across
risky
it,
move.
it's risky. I would assume maybe... And I mean, I know Kingsley went over the plans very, very quickly, but maybe there'd be a way you could send a quick Patronus and be like,
Yeah.
don't go over here.
that's another thing. Sprout seems to have already chucked Kingsley's plan to the side. He's like, I'm going out of the grounds. Okay. What made that change? I mean, to all we know, there may have been changes. Maybe they looked at what they were facing and were like, okay, we need to reorganize real quick. Here's how we're going to do it.
I get the sense they ran out to the greenhouse, grabbed everything that they could, and then they were like, we're going to go up to the tower, and we're going to just
Lob them
chuck
out
them
from there. That's true, too.
Yeah.
At one point, the whole castle shakes from what Harry describes as sinister enchantments. Fang ends up running at this point. Hagrid follows Fang, leaving Harry alone. But not completely alone, because he ends up getting encouragement from who?
The portrait!
Sir Cadogan.
I love that he comes back.
It's his moment. This is his time to shine.
I also love that he called out Harry on a first name basis. He was like, "You get him, Harry Potter." Like, how do you know? Like, how do you remember me? And what is this magical world within a world that the portrait magic seems to have? Because that still continues to fascinate me. You can't do anything, but you can shout encouragement, I guess, and hope that your painting doesn't get destroyed in the process.
I just always pictured him like as like the French knight from Monty Python.
Yeah.
Yep. Harry passes Fred and Lee Jordan, who are, along with Hannah Abbott, protecting one of the passageways. I believe this is the One-Eyed Witch passageway, if I'm reading it correctly.
I think so. I also liked Mrs. Norris hissing at all the owls that were flying around, being like, "Go back to your perches." She's got her own little mini battle going on here.
Do your duty to your school! Like, you think McGonagall went into cat form and, like, shouted the instructions, like, meow, 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 meow. Like, who's witnessing this, like, discussion between the cats?
Bring out your claws.
To organize defenses. But, like, McGonagall's giving the same speech of, like, do your duty, but it's just coming out, meow.
Mrs. Norris, Crookshanks, whatever other animals.
I could just see
you
Mrs.
get.
Norris just going, yes. Yes, ma'am.
The old salute.
Harry runs into a very aggravated Aberforth. He's aggravated because hundreds of kids have stormed through his pub in the last few hours. And he has actually suggested keeping Slytherin there instead of sending them out so he can keep them as hostages. Which, I mean, a lot of them are Death Eaters' sons and daughters, so maybe that makes strategical sense.
He did say Dumbledore wouldn't have allowed that, though. And he was like, yeah, you're probably right. Just, like, stumbled off.
Somehow, someway, Harry ends up reuniting with Ron and Hermione. And Ron says he had the idea to go to the Chamber of Secrets to obtain basilisk fangs. And Ron ends up mimicking, because Harry's like, wait, don't you need to use parcel tongue to get there? And then Ron's like, oh yeah.
It took me a few times, but I got it.
I feel like me on this recording is just all animal sounds. But that's okay. But yes, it did take Ron a couple of tries to mimic Harry's parcel tongue. He notes that Hermione destroyed Hufflepuff's cup. He figured it was her turn to do so because she hasn't had the pleasure yet.
I love this bit. Like, I get why it's not actually seen, and it is kind of fun to see that they had their own little side quest. But I think it would have been so cool to watch Hermione go down into the Chamber of Secrets, which she warned Ron and Harry about, and she never got to see, and for Ron to actually get past the point that he got with Lockhart, and then, like, Hermione see, like, ooh, we are literally in history. It's like Hogwarts history that's not even in Hogwarts A history, and then they see the basilisk, like, skeleton, and be like, whoa, that is really, really big. That's what Harry was up against. It would just been really, really fun.
I would have loved to see her destroy that Horcrux.
Well,
yes.
Can I propose something to you both? We're getting an HBO series.
Yes.
And let's say, like, the first season is supposed to be 8-hour-long episodes. So we're turning a relatively short book into 8-hour-long episodes, which might...
I'm here for it.
But here's the thing. In this circumstance, would you both be okay with them showing this? It didn't happen in the book, but would you be okay with them putting their own spin and showing you Ron and Hermione actually destroying the cup?
Yes.
With the cup having some sort of existential magic about it.
Yes, and here's why. Because I feel like there's so much chaos going on with Harry that if you were to cut up the episode, like, emotionally and tonally, you would go from the chaos of Harry's, like, being in the battle to then this quiet, like, down in the dungeon chambers of the Chamber of Secrets with Ron and Hermione doing, like, their quick little grab it and go. Like, that side quest would be a nice, we break up the tension of the battle to have quiet, and then we go right back to it, and it's going to hit you much harder than it would have if it was just straight battle.
I'm going to take book purist route.
You're saying no.
No, as much as I would love to see it, I just don't think that there'd be enough time. Like, I'd want to see what was happening in the book.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe they can do, like, go back to 20 episode season.
Right, exactly.
I mean, they might. I mean, they very well might.
Right.
When you get into larger books like 4, 5, 6, and 7, they might extend it out to maybe 12 episodes or whatever.
Yeah.
Or 2-hour
That's
episodes
fair.
or something. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's fair. I would love to see as much of this battle as possible, and I would love to see... I want to see it be a little on the darker side. I want it to be like a war movie, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
But then, you know what? I want to see the battle. Let's not make it like the Battle of Winterfell in Game of Thrones.
Yes.
I would actually like to see visually the battle and not have it just be a black screen that I'm trying to wait. Like, is that a character? I'm not sure. Which character is it? Oh no, that was okay. We're good. That was some post.
All the way up on here.
Anyway, sorry for the random Game of Thrones catching a stray here, but that's okay. Yeah. So Harry fills them in on the diadem, and they go off to the room of requirement, and it's empty, except for Ginny, Tonks, and Neville's grandmother. Mrs. Longbottom says she has sealed the passage from the Hogshead since Aberforth is now at Hogwarts, leaving his pub unprotected.
Smart. I mean, literally, Death Eaters have snuck in through the room of requirement before, so we learn our lessons.
Yeah. Yeah. She's like, where's Neville? Where's Neville at? And Harry's like, oh, he's out there fighting. She responds with, oh, of course he is. And off she goes to join him in the fight.
I love that. I love seeing her pride in him, especially knowing everything about their history. It's great.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Tonks says her mother is looking after her son, Teddy. Where's Remus? And Harry says, oh, he went with Kingsley out into the grounds. And that's where she's off to, heading straight to the grounds. Harry tells Ginny, you gots to go. And follows it up with, but do come back.
He says she looked delighted. I was like, okay.
I feel like Harry's like, Ginny, you really need to leave the room too. And Ginny's like, okay, peace. And then him just going, come back. No, but really, come back though. No, come back.
I feel like while this is very subtle, I feel like this is a very adorable moment of her being so excited to leave the room that she felt confined in, and him being like, but wait, you will be going back in the room, right? Like, you're going, like, I want to keep you safe.
I could just see him turning to Hermione and be like, she'll come back, right? She'll be back. That's fine. That's all fine. Literally, it's all fine. The meme, everything is burning around you.
Yes.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. Totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, though, as a mom, I don't think I could leave my kid.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you think Tonks should have stayed with Teddy?
I mean, she's got to do her. Like, that's, you do you, man. But I know me as a mom, I don't think I could have left my kid. Like,
It's totally fair.
love my husband, but sorry, man. I'm staying with my kid.
It's hard. It's a hard choice because on one hand you're like, this is my child and my child means everything to me. But at the same time, I think we've clearly seen how much Remus means to her too, and that's
Right.
like her rock and everything
Right.
too. So it's like, I don't know that I can do this without my partner.
Yeah.
If you take emotion out of it, then it would be, if I go to the fight, I risk dying, and then my kid will absolutely not have any parents. Or I stay home and I lose my husband, but at least my child gets to be raised by one parent, which is
It's a terrible choice to make.
Oh, it's a horrible choice
It's not
to
a
make.
good situation to be in.
No, it's a horrible choice to make, but I don't think I could. Just that bond, like, I don't know, that bond you have when your kid is
Well,
in the
especially that
womb.
young.
Yeah.
Well, especially that young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that child is so dependent
Helpless.
on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's be hard.
But again, I mean, everybody's different. You have different choices to make. But I was kind of like, whoa, okay.
We saw how much Lupin affects her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at a deeply emotional and personal level, if it's changing her Patronus, which we know to be such a inherent part of you and your soul, really. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a terrible choice.
It is, yeah.
So I think she's making the decision of, I trust my mother. But keep in mind, her father is already passed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she entrusts her mother to do this job, and she's an accomplished witch, and obviously she's raised a wonderful daughter. So
Yeah.
she,
And I'm sure she had some comments of like, "Are you sure this is the choice you want to make?" Like,
Yeah.
there's
okay,
also
okay.
you can also see it in someone's eyes when you know you can say whatever you want to say. They're gonna do what they're gonna do,
Oh, 100%.
and you can give your 2 cents. And I'm sure she did one way or the other, but she probably looked at her daughter and was like, "Not gonna be able to stop you here." So
Yeah.
it's a really interesting choice that Tonks makes.
Yeah. I mean, again, you do you.
Harry's like, "Okay, everybody's out. We need to get out of here too." And Ron's like, "Wait a second. We can't leave the room yet. We forgot about somebody." And Harry's like, what are you talking about? Who do we forget? And Ron's like, house elves. Harry's like, wait, to fight? You want them to fight with us? And Ron's like, no. Evacuate. I want them to get out of here. We can't order them to die for us.
We want to avoid another Dobby situation.
We want to avoid another Dobby situation. And at this moment, Hermione drops all of the basilisk fangs that she's carrying, flings her arms around Ron, and kisses him. Ron responds in kind and lifts her off her feet. Harry, hey, this is great and everything, but is this really the moment you want to choose? Like, I'm supportive, but also, like, really? Like, come on.
Now.
Priorities.
I don't know. Maybe it's just I'm more of a romantic, but I love this moment. Like, I think for Hermione to see Ron showing genuine concern for someone other than himself, and someone that he has previously seen as, like, lesser than himself. Like, I mean, this has been a lesson she's been trying to impart on him since 4th year. And she's previously called him out on not feeling emotions for people. Like he said, he had the emotional range of a teaspoon. So this isn't lust for him. It's just a swell of emotion where he looks more attractive than he ever has because he's feeling these deep feelings of care for somebody else. And he just had the being brilliant in the Chamber of Secrets, so that's also working.
Well,
in
he's
his
been
favor.
building on this for...
He's had a lot going on, so it makes total sense to me that, yeah, she would drop everything and be like, I'm kissing him. I think it was just a very, very long, passionate kiss that's been building up for ages, so each person feels it so deeply that, yeah, they get lost in it. But I do also enjoy Harry being like, now's not the time!
Pro or anti big kiss here? What do we got?
I'm on the fence. I mean, obviously, is this really the time? Is this the moment? But at the same time, too, like, again, it's been building, so...
Emotions are running hot here.
And I feel
Like,
and
we could die any second.
Right, exactly.
Well, that's what Ron says. He's like, hey, it's now or never. I mean,
Exactly.
we could possibly all die here, so...
Exactly. Like, when you're in those situations, you want to let people that you love know that you love them, so...
So the trio eventually end up exiting the room of requirement, and they find the battle has escalated. Ginny and Tonks are rapidly firing curses out of a broken window as Voldy's forces move closer to the castle. Aberforth runs past leading a group of students, yelling that Death Eaters have brought giants. Tonks asks Aberforth about Lupin. Lupin, Aberforth says, was last seen dueling Dolohov, but he hasn't seen Lupin since. Ginny immediately, in this tense moment, reassures Tonks, who then bolts to the grounds. What do we think about that interaction with Aberforth? One, leading a group of students, which seems odd for his personality, but yeah, you do what you can, I guess.
They all came into my pub, so I guess I'll come into their castle.
Do you think he was selective on his choice of students and been like, you look tough? Do you think he also
it's more
tested
like,
them?
You don't look annoying, so I'm going to go with you.
You, do you talk much? No? You're on my team.
I love that.
You, do you like goats? Yes? No? Alright. Here's where we go.
Team goat this way. I I like that he complimented Ginny. She did a spell out the window that hit like some distance, and he was like, "Yeah, that was a good one. Good job."
It's a compliment.
That
It's a
was
nice
very nice
compliment.
of him.
Yeah.
They end up re-entering the place where everything is hidden.
Which is still my favorite version of this room. This is a massive, massive space going on here.
Which is exactly why Hermione tries Accio first. Unsuccessful.
Doesn't work.
This is now, what, 0 for 3 they've tried?
Yeah.
They tried on, Harry tried on the locket, fail. They tried in the Gringotts vault, fail. And now they've tried here, fail.
I did like Ron's comment. He was like, wait, Voldemort thought nobody could get in here? And he's like, yeah, there's clearly evidence that people have gotten in here. But at the same time, I do kind of get the logic, because it's the same lesson that Hermione had to learn in the first, like, Dumbledore's army meeting of the Three Broomsticks. It's like, if you have more people around, less likely to be overheard. If there's more stuff to search through, it's going to be harder to find your object.
So what do we think about this idea? So everybody has been hating on Voldy's picks for Horcruxes and where he's hidden them, because they've been personal locations to him and they've been big, grandiose objects, right? So people have nitpicked like, hey, should be pretty easy to figure out what they are and where they potentially are if you know like anything about them. Fair. This pick is interesting because, if anything, everybody's like, oh, just drop a rock in the ocean or drop a rock in like a mountain range or something like that, and like, how are you going to find it? Well, this is an old, centuries old, battered, tarnished diadem, which now looks like just an old piece of jewelry or whatever, tiara. and it's in a literal cathedral of junk. So it looks like junk in a pile upon pile upon pile and pile of junk. So in theory, that's what he's doing. He's kind of burying something in a bunch of other things. It's hard to find if you don't know where to look. On top of, it's in Hogwarts. On top of, it's in a room that
People don't all know exists.
people that don't all know it exists, number one, at all. And number two, maybe not knowing how they even got into the room in the first place and can't find their way back to it, because that's been mentioned before. Mm-hmm. I mean, this has like layer on top of layer on top of layer on top of layer of protection. This is a pretty good hiding spot.
It is.
There's one other thing mentioned about the room that I found interesting. He said they went past the vanishing cabinet. And I'm really surprised no one thought to destroy it, given how it was used in Book 6. Like, we still had that pathway.
I wonder what they did with the one in Borgin and Burke's.
Yeah. I wonder
what they did to Borgin and Burke's. Like, if I was Rufus, I'm going straight to Borgin and Burke's and being like, hey, we need to have a talk.
Well, I mean, not to mention, too, the one thing that I was thinking about while I was reading this was, you know, Voldy had tasked Draco with this whole thing of killing Dumbledore in the last book, right? If Voldy thinks that he's the only person that has ever found this room, but Draco's using the vanishing cabinet in that room, like, how did that not
click for Voldy?
Yeah.
So
That's a good point.
Yeah. So here's my thought on that is, because I thought I had the same thought.
Yeah.
Of like, wait, we've used this before.
Right.
So there's a couple of different things. One, there's ways Draco could have phrased this without details. Mm-hmm. He could have said, hey, I'm using this vanishing cabinet. My Slytherin buddy got stuck in it. That's how I know about it. And he could have not told them that it was specifically the room of requirement was the location. He could just say, I'm using this vanishing cabinet as a portal in and out.
Yeah. I could say it's like in the Slytherin house.
Then he's not lying.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have to worry about like legitimacy or anything like that. He could be like, no, I'm telling the truth. I'm using a vanishing cabinet.
Yeah.
And leave out the little specifics.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, he's got the story. It could be verified. It could be backed up by other people because it was a public event. So, I mean, that's how I'm going around that. Because you're right. If he said, oh, there's this vanishing cabinet in this weird room in Hogwarts that, like, changes every time. Like, Wooly would be like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Can you describe this more?
Is there still a tiara in there?
Yeah.
Harry suggests splitting up and tells them exactly what to look for.
Which I think is smart. Like, time is of the essence. You have to go and you have to find this thing. Like, hurry up. Staying together is not going to work.
I mean, Harry did place the book underneath it, or near it. So he would know generally where it's at, and he would know generally the steps it took to get there and all that kind of stuff. Generally. It was like a year ago, so maybe a little foggy on the specific details. But Harry ends up finding the tiara, starts to reach for it, and then he gets interrupted by Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle. Draco now using his mother's wand, and Harry still using his, Draco's. Draco says he knows the Room of Hidden Things very, very well. So we've already had Seamus speaking of Neville using the Room of Requirement maybe better than anyone ever has, including Harry, including Voldy. And now Draco's like, hey, wait a second, I'm going to lay claim to that too. I use this room very, very well and very successfully. And obviously he just got into it when other people are already in it. So he knows the ways in and out too. I'm about to give Crabbe and Goyle a little bit of a compliment, but let's make no mistake. Draco is still the most coherent, the most with it, the most intelligent
Very much so.
of the three. However, that being said, Crabbe and Goyle are a little bit more vocal. They're a little bit more confident. Crabbe especially seems a little bit more in touch with who he is as a person. He seems to have grown and matured.
Well, I also said, like, Draco, I don't have to take any orders from you anymore because you, your father, you guys are done for. This is the time of the crabs. This is last
That
night.
is a terrible motto to go for. Your family motto, you might want to rethink.
I love it.
Crabbe ends up sending a stack of junk falling over where Ron presumably is, as Ron had shouted, hey, wait, Harry, are you talking to people? Are you, like, who's
You okay,
here?
bro?
You good, bro?
I like Malfoy immediately being like, don't do that, idiot. Like, you're going to bury this thing that he's apparently looking for. He's like, oh, I don't care. Like, no, he's in here for a reason. Let's think about the logic.
It is the time of the crabs.
What a catchphrase that would be. So, yes, Draco does try to stop Crabbe from wrecking the room. And Crabbe ends up firing Crucio at Harry. As Harry ends up... Well, they're arguing. Harry's like, I'm just going to yoink over here. Crabbe fires Crucio at him, misses. But the diadem flies into a nearby junk pile. Crabbe says he's not trying to kill Potter, but it'll be fine if it happens anyway. Voldy would definitely have problems with that.
I think Malfoy a little bit is aware of that when he's like, he said don't kill him. And it's like, well, I'm not taking orders from you anymore, Draco. It's like, okay, if you had just a few more brain cells up in that head, maybe you'd remember that I have seen Voldemort's, like, bad side, and I've taken orders directly from him before, and he doesn't like them to be defied. So for the good of everybody, you have to make sure that you don't accidentally kill Harry Potter, much as you would like to.
So Hermione appears and misses Crabbe with a stunning spell, which Crabbe then immediately fires a killing curse back at her. So he went from like
That's an escalation.
a nice like 5 out of 10 to a quick 10 out of 10. real quick. Harry hits Goyle with what spell, everybody? Expelliarmus.
It works.
It works because, you know, the one way to guarantee that Goyle can't fire a killing curse at you is by getting rid of the thing that he uses to curse people.
Yes.
That's why this is still an important spell. Harry hits Goyle with Expelliarmus. Ron emerges from the pile of junk, but misses a full body bind curse. Crabbe misses Ron with another killing curse. Crabbe ignites an abnormally large and uncontrollable fire that almost seems sentient.
Yeah.
And it mutates into beasts. So it starts out as just an uncontrollable fire that seems to be specifically following you. You turn left and suddenly, like, turns left and follows you. Now, not only is it doing that, which is scary enough, now it's mutating into mythical creatures that also are following you and burning up everything that it touches.
I like at first how he's like, oh, you guys like it hot? Haha. And then he runs and he also looks terrified. Like, no, you idiot. You don't realize you just said something that you cannot control and also wants to murder you. And you can't run fast enough away from it. So you could also die.
Well, they all do run for it. Draco grabs Goyle, who, remember, is still stunned by Hermione. And then Crabbe, to what you just said, looks terrified. The trio then the trio ends up getting surrounded by flames, but just so happen, as they're surrounded by flames, to be next to a couple of brooms that they can get on, and they fly above the flames. This is the one thing that I do think is kind of convenient.
I don't hate
it's a room
it.
of requirement.
Okay,
And there's so much stuff in here.
You could say that
Yeah.
it's the room of requirement, so they needed brooms, so it could have provided the right junk at the right time, I suppose.
Yeah.
That would be the counter. If you're not going with that, you're like, okay, you're surrounded by fire in a room that's full of a lot of stuff, and you just happen to be by the one thing that you need. That would be the one convenience.
I could totally see, like, first years trying to smuggle in brooms that they weren't supposed to have, or, like...
I have no doubt that there are brooms there. It's just convenient that they just happen to be there in the exact time that they needed to be there. That's all I'm saying.
This all did remind me of the, like, Aladdin, when they're in the Cave of Wonders and everything's lava suddenly, and, like, now you're trapped and gotta get your magic carpet. I
will acknowledge your point, Molly, that it is possible that the room of requirement could have, like, manifested brooms there because they're like, hey, you need to...
Yeah,
this is
like
what you need.
Subconsciously.
Sure.
Like, yeah.
The trio flies up into the air. Harry they actually do look for Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle to try to save them if they can find them. They do find them.
I liked his quote. It was like, what a terrible way to die. He had never wanted this. Even his worst enemies, although you should argue probably Voldemort is the worst enemy, but these people who have tortured him and been his enemies of school his entire time is like, yeah, I don't want them to die in this. This is horrific.
Like, who wants to be burned alive?
Yeah.
It's a terrible way to die.
Yeah.
And in this particular way where the flames are literally
it's like
eating
hunting
you alive.
Yeah, it's hunting you.
Yeah. So they end up finding the trio of Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle, and Ron shouts, "If we die for them, I'll kill you, Harry."
I laughed.
It's a great line. It's a very Ron line.
Yes.
Ron ends up pulling Goyle onto the broom with him and Hermione. Draco joins Harry.
See, that's the part where I'm like, I feel like the broom that has been old and abandoned this entire time would not do well with two teenage boys and a teenage girl, all their weight.
Maybe,
It's the room of requirement, guys.
It's a very strong broom.
maybe they got one of Moody's, like, recliner brooms.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like an Escalade broom where it's like 3 deep on that, like, you know.
The tank broom.
The tank broom. Yeah.
If anything, they should have gotten, like, remember how Percy once said that they were trying to, like, import magic carpets? Like, what if they had found a magic carpet?
That would have been good.
That would
have been a little on the nose, though, with the Aladdin callback.
Yeah.
But I could just being like, one of them thinking, can you actually just add a little bit more room onto this? Make a little bit more roomy. Could you add a radio onto this? That'd be good, too. Get some AC up in here, like... Anyway, as they're trying to escape the room of requirement, Harry spots the tiara being flung up into the air by fire beasts. Malfoy, not a fan of going to try to chase the tiara, but Harry races on the broom and grabs it. And I got the image of this is the callback to Quidditch. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a clear allusion to the game of Quidditch. He sees a bright, shiny object off in the distance in a lot of chaos and is able to pinpoint it, race on the broom. This is like his skill set.
Yeah.
Especially it's not the only
use.
object being thrown up. He said there was lots of shiny things being tossed into the sky and burning it to crypts. So it was like, oh, there it is. Yep.
And,
I get it.
And like you said, this Harry-Draco rivalry has been literally from the get-go. You have the Harry, Ron, Hermione, Draco, Crabbe, Goyle rivalry, the 6 of them from the get-go. This moment is a huge allusion, again, to their entire rivalry throughout the series. Yeah. So I like having...
Like, even though I don't like you, I will save you.
Yeah, it kind of resolves that circle of, like, we can put our stuff to the side for just a second to, like, bigger things.
And when you think about it, the last time he really had a one-on-one interaction with Draco, other than being on top of the tower where he was under the invisibility cloak, was when he cast Sectum Sempra on him.
Alone? Like just those two?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like, well, last time I almost killed you. Now I'm saving you.
We're even. Draco's like, I don't care, get me out of here. They do find the exit and they crash into the corridor outside. So, as we're gathering ourselves, we note that Crab has not escaped from this room. The room of requirement was in some rough shape when they left. So they assume Crab is now deceased.
Now, Ron's comment, though, about the room maybe not working anymore, that did lead me on another deep dive. So Reddit had a few theories about it. It could be, yes, literally, the room of requirement is completely destroyed. It will never, ever function ever again. It could be that the fire extinguished the minute that they left the room, because the room doesn't exist when there's no people in it, so it just ceases to be nothingness, so the fire would have completely extinguished. There was a whole other thought that whenever people set curses or jinxes, once the caster of that spell dies, then the spell ceases to exist. And the example they gave was the full body bind that Dumbledore did on Harry when they were up on the tower. The minute Dumbledore died, Harry was free of that. So the thought being, like, once Crab dies, then the fire would have also died out too. But my hope is that the room would be able to repair itself, because its function is literally to be there for those in need. So I would hope that it is always there for those in need. But I do mourn the loss of all those objects.
My headcanon is going to be kind of a mix of what you just said. Of, I think the spell is so powerful and so unique that it might exist after Crab's death, but it might have been weakened enough where once the room of requirement does blip out or does change or whatever, then it might snuff it out. I'm going to kind of meld a couple of things together. There's my specific headcanon.
I think one way or the other, the Crab family is not getting his body back.
No. So, the room of requirement possibly destroyed. Ginny is gone. The Headless Hunt is on the move.
Which again, what can they do? They're ghosts. Like,
they can distract. I mean, it could be a really distracting thing.
I guess they can like make them feel really, really cold, and then be like,
slow down.
Yeah.
But it's also, you still see them, and you could still see through them, but it is opaque, so they could blur visibility. They can cause problems.
Right.
That's fair.
The diadem, confirmed by the words that are etched upon it, is starting to bleed a dark tar-like substance which vibrates violently, and then the diadem falls apart with a distant echo of a scream in pain. Hermione identifies the fire as fiend fire, a cursed fire that can indeed destroy Horcruxes, which means Crab has destroyed a Horcrux. So maybe the time of the Crabs
Has returned.
Yeah.
Stole my line, Dan.
I mean, we kid, but when you think about it, how many Horcruxes are actually out there that have been destroyed? He's probably one of the few who has destroyed a Horcrux.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be in a history book.
To his credit, he created a spell so powerful that it did eliminate one of the most powerful dark wizard's Horcruxes.
Yeah.
I mean,
he put it beyond magical repair. That's hard to do.
I mean, it is a significant thing that he has done, and it cost him his life. I mean, that's how it is.
Yeah.
How do we feel about the description of the diadem being destroyed?
I think it's cool.
I agree.
My favorite part of it was the distant scream.
Yeah.
Which means it had some level of sentience to it, under my understanding. I would have loved to see someone put this thing on.
Yeah.
And see what it could have done.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine? Goyle puts this thing on.
God.
Just a momentary intelligence, and you're like, what?
He's using words. So you're like, wait, Goyle.
Malfoy's like, hold on, I can't keep up with you. What'd you just say?
Somewhere where, Ravenclaw's watching this all from wherever she may be. And
face
just going
palming like crazy.
She's just going like, I can only have done so much. I am prodigious. But that's asking a lot of me. So
I like how it gets destroyed. I think not spending as much time with it as maybe some of the other Horcruxes is totally fine. We've seen how they react by this point.
So they acknowledge that the snake is the last one remaining, and they have to go try to destroy it. They have to find it first and then destroy it. The sound of dueling intensifies. Voldy's forces are starting to penetrate the boundaries of the castle itself. And then Percy and Fred come into view. And they are both dueling masked men. The trio run to engage. The man dueling Percy has his mask slip, and it is the acting Minister of Magic, Pius Thickness. Percy quips as he's dueling Pius, I think I'm going to resign, actually. I think I'm going to resign my post. And he jinxes Pius. Pius drops his wand, looks really disturbed, as spikes start erupting all over him. And he turns into what Harry seems like is an urchin of some sort, like a sea urchin.
I have read this book so many times, and I have never caught that detail. At this time, I was like, what is happening here?
Well, that's what Pius was thinking, too. What is happening? And I think it's a testament to Percy, because we get a couple of mentions throughout the series of, like, hey, human transfiguration is immensely difficult. Mm-hmm. You have to be very sure of what you're doing, or it can be messed up in a prodigious way. And now he's in a high-stress environment, dueling the Minister of Magic, and he is able to transfigure him with a joke on top of it. Percy's got some skill now.
That's a nice full circle thing, too, given how obsessed he was with the Ministry several years ago, and how he has been this entire time. But now to take down the Minister of Magic, who is standing between you and, like, being with your family...
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Fred is delighted to hear Percy joke, as Fred's opponent is hit by 3 separate stunning spells. And as the seeming danger has been dealt with, the air explodes. The side of the castle has been blown away. Harry flies through the air, holding his wand and shielding his head is all he can really manage to do, half covered in rubble and bleeding copiously. An agonizing scream pierces the air. Harry has been more afraid now than he's possibly ever been in his life. Harry grabs Hermione as they approach 3 red-headed men on the ground. No. Fred. No. Percy is shaking his brother. Ron, kneeling beside them. Fred's eyes stared without seeing, the ghost of his laugh still etched upon his face.
Tear.
So many tears. I remember being just, like, completely washed over with emotion at this point. I was stunned the first time I read it, and it felt like the whole world was being just ripped apart, and there's this deep sadness with how quickly that it happens, and it just made the battle feel more real than it had prior to this point.
I think it's a very real description of battle. You take care of the people right in front of you, and then you get hit by something from the side that you never even saw coming, and it's just collateral. It's not even a hit spell, it's collateral damage.
Yeah.
It's the side of the castle falling in all around you.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not a killing curse. It's,
correct.
It's just things falling apart.
It's just debris.
Yeah.
I love the writing of Fred's eyes stared without seeing, the ghost of his laugh still etched upon his face. I mean, that's
the
just,
ghost of the last laugh.
Yeah.
That is the thing that
it's
just
such
yeah.
a vivid imagery.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking.
It just shows the
hard,
quickness
yeah.
of it. And then to know also, like, you literally just reunited with Percy. You just, like, extended that olive branch of, like, you're part of the family again. We want you here. And then for Percy to see this happen is a heck of a way to end a chapter.
It is a heck of a way to end a chapter.
It's just such an emotional roller coaster, and then by the time you get to this point, you feel like you've been drained, and then you realize, I haven't actually been drained. Now I'm drained with this.
And there's
last little
more.
sentence. And you're not done yet. No.
You're not done yet.
I know.
So we will end a very loaded chapter here and we will be back with a part 2. You might have noticed this has gone on without a break. That's because we have 2 more voices to include on this chapter, and that will be Julie and Jenn will weigh in with their thoughts about Chapter 31, The Battle of Hogwarts. So we will take a short break, and we will be back with them next.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Llévate más de lo que esperas todos los días con el nuevo McValue en McDonald's. Ahora puedes comprar uno y sumarle otro por $1. Así que cuando tu equipo favorito enfrente a sus rivales, enfrenta tus antojos con $5 Meal Deals. Y si estás corriendo para alcanzar el desayuno, corre a la para llevarte ofertas antes del cut-off. Tú decides, y con McValue, tu decisión siempre rinde más. Precios y participación pueden variar. BOGO $1 válido para un producto de igual o menor valor. Debe estar registrado en Rewards para ofertas en el app.
Before we get to our break sound, I'd like to acknowledge our friend Andy, who helps us produce our intros and our break sounds. If you want to hear more of Andy's work and like Formula One racing, check out the Outlap F1 podcast. It's your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. You can find them wherever you listen to podcasts, and they even have a YouTube page. So check out Andy, Cody, John, James, and Deanna, and join them on the Outlap.
Dobby has no master. Dobby is a free elf.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
All right, so we are back from break, and we have 2 new guests to talk about Chapter 31, The Battle of Hogwarts. We have Julie.
Hi, everybody.
And Jenn.
Hey, guys.
And this will be quite interesting, I think, to get their opinions on this awfully busy, chaotic chapter. And I know Julie has some hot takes. She never disappoints. Yep, never disappoints. But I wanted to start off with your guys' thoughts on the warning that Voldy gives, which was, again, apparently heard throughout the castle and the mountains and throughout Hogsmeade.
I feel like it's so dramatic. I feel like Voldemort's not really one for the, dramatics. He just kind of, he has flair with what he does, but I don't necessarily see him being like, and let's tell everyone. I get his plan in the end is to, make sure that Harry is coming to him, and the best way to do that is by making Harry see that all these people are being hurt or killed. But it feels so dramatic to make this big reverberating announcement.
See, I thought the opposite of that. I thought he is dramatic, right? I've always viewed how he acts throughout these books as being, he's always very extra. He never takes the time to just kill Harry. He always has to monologue about it. He always has to have his circle of Death Eaters around him. He always has to,
But I feel like it's always on a smaller scale, though.
This is by far his biggest stage. But I feel like he's also relishing in that. He's like, I want to make sure people hear me.
Jenn, to your point, even though you're Voldemort and you're got the presence and the crazy look to you, this is still Tom Riddle at heart. And I think the smooth talking, every word he says has a point to it. He tries to get something out of you. He tries to get a rise out of you. He tries to instill fear out of you. He's always got a point with what he speaks. And this is more to it.
Okay, wait, my theater kid moment for you guys. Do you think Voldy rehearsed this before doing it? Did he stand in front of a mirror and practice his speech and go, no, hold on, no. I gotta change the way that I say it.
I need an extra pause right here.
Part of Lucius Malfoy's punishment
is listening to Voldy's rehearsals of this speech.
But you can't critique it. You can't critique it because if you critique it,
I just want to know, did he practice what he was gonna say before he did it, or
does
was he
let's
go?
This is my new headcanon.
Does Voldy get self-conscious? Does he see just a twitch from Lucius and he's like, what was bad? What did I say that was off?
He gets self-conscious, but then it just comes out as more anger.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
I love the thought of him doing this for Lucius and then pulling him aside and being like, did this make you feel scared? Did I come off appropriately terrified?
So his speech did inspire at least one student, and that student was Pansy Parkinson. And this kind of gets into the house breakdown of it all, which, Jen, I know you are very eager to talk about, because Julie and I are going to look to you here as our resident Slytherin.
Yes.
McGonagall obviously begins the evacuations, and we see the difference. Slytherin table completely deserted. A number of old Ravenclaws remained. More Hufflepuffs than that. Mm-hmm. And then half of the Gryffindors remained.
I'm disappointed in that number as a Gryffindor.
So you're thinking, McGonagall only wants 7th years to remain.
Which I think is totally valid. You're the only ones who are legal adults and can make this decision by yourself.
Yes.
And so I totally get that, but one of the biggest qualities of Gryffindors is supposed to be, courage, bravery, and half of you just got up and left. You didn't go, oh wait, that 3rd year's staying? Well, I'm staying. I'm not going to be the one that leaves when a 3rd year is sitting there. I get that you weren't necessarily going to say all the Gryffindors stayed, but I think it should have been most Gryffindors stayed, and McGonagall was like, excuse me, did you not hear me when I was talking? Leave.
See, I think that's a headcanon
nice.
most people have.
Yeah.
Is when they read this, they think most or all Gryffindors stayed. That's not what it says. It says half.
Well, and I think it's even harder, too, when obviously throughout the series, we know so many more Gryffindors than any other house.
Yes.
So to then get to this point and it's half the Gryffindors left, you're like, wait, what? Yeah. No. And that, that bothers me. I'm also bothered by the Slytherin table because I think it's unrealistic. Literally in my notes, it says, boo, can we talk about this with Jen?
I'm glad I have you both on.
Okay, so definitely makes sense in my mind that it's the extremes. It's where the whole book series has been. That tracks. The fact that there are no Slytherin, this is what I have been saying for 7 books of this is the biggest fault that I find with the Harry Potter series as a whole is the complete and utter lack of any sort of characterization of the Slytherins that paints them in any sort of positive light. At best, you have neutral, but this is a prime example of it's a Slytherin who stands up to try to get Potter. All of the Slytherins leave willingly. There's a complete and total lack of any sympathetic Slytherin characters.
To that point, why do you think this is? Why do you think none for Slytherin? And why do you think the vast majority of Gryffindor? I'm going to present that it can't be all Slytherins are evil, therefore none of them stayed, and it can't be all Gryffindors are brave, therefore half of them stayed. There has to be another reason. Is it peer pressure? Is it the idea of I'm Slytherin, so therefore I have to go? I'm Gryffindor, so even though I don't really want to stay here, I feel like I have to, just based on...
I think partially. For Gryffindor specifically, you figure the half that's staying is more than likely the older half, and that the younger half is the one that's because, again, you're talking the younger half is 11, 12, 13. I think they're the ones who are going to be all right, McGonagall's a little scary, and now she's extra scary. I'm just going to listen. Bye. And I think for the older half of Gryffindor especially, they know Harry. Think of what the older half of Hogwarts has seen just in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
So, at this point, if you're 4th year or up at, and you're a Gryffindor, if you left that table, I'm sorry. Who are you? No. And I think for the Slytherins... part of it is that probably a lot of their parents are Death Eaters or respect the Death Eaters. Out of any house, who's going to apply the most peer pressure to get you to follow the crowd? And I don't mean this in an offensive way, Jen, but it's going to be Slytherin.
No, yeah, that makes sense.
Jen peer pressures me all the time.
That's our whole friendship.
Yep.
But I think the one thing that I disagree with the writing of this scene is I wish that a couple of Slytherins had wanted to stay, and that instead Hogwarts as a whole was like, I'm sorry, we don't trust you. We don't trust the connections you have. You need to leave with your house.
I would have even gone so far as to say I wouldn't have minded if there was just some sort of conveyance that there was hesitation on the Slytherin's part before they left. Not even like a, we don't trust you, get out, but just if like someone lingered, or a couple of them lingered, a couple of them were slow to get up and slow to move out with the rest of their
there
class.
Needed to be something to fight against it.
Yeah, there needed to be something to show that there was doubt there.
What do you think about this angle too with it of if there was a Slytherin who was like, I kind of want to stay, do you think they would feel welcome by the other houses? Or they would be shunned to the side?
I don't even think that that's necessarily relevant. If you're there to fight, I don't think you necessarily care if you're welcome or part of it, because you already know that all the other houses are fighting the Death Eaters. They're not going to turn around and be like, hey, you know what we need? One more enemy. Let's fight you, too.
I think that there would be someone on one of the houses welcoming them. I don't think that there would... I could see where the majority of students who stayed behind would be skeptical.
You don't think it would be at all threatening when Pansy says the instigating comment that has all three of the other houses rise against Slytherin, and you don't think one Slytherin in the back's like, I would have, but that's kind of scary. Like having all three of the other houses against you already with the mindset of you are bad.
Are they against Slytherin as a whole, or are they against Pansy Parkinson saying, grab Harry?
Definitely against Pansy.
I'm not sure if I'm a Slytherin and I'm sitting there and Pansy says that and people turn around and they're all defending Harry. I'm not sure I'm feeling targeted. I feel like Pansy's feeling targeted. 100% see something where it's like a first or second year Slytherin who's only been there for a short amount of time is hesitant in staying back, and I could see some of the older Gryffindors welcoming them.
I obviously agree that I wish she wrote in that a Slytherin had stayed.
There were so many better ways to handle the nuances of Slytherins instead of to continue this very tired thing that she started from book one of just Gryffindor good, Slytherin bad.
Right. Slughorn's reaction to all of this, obviously Flitwick and Sprout were like, yeah, we're doing this.
Yeah, like, let's go.
And Slughorn was like, hey, are we sure this is the right... Like, he wasn't saying no.
Right.
But he wasn't, like, very enthusiastic about it either. You're talking about a Slytherin who's not opposed. Mm-hmm. He hasn't come out and said, hey, no, this is wrong. He said, is this smart? Is this the wise move right now? We can't hold this. He will find a way in.
Are those bad questions?
Well, that's what I want to ask you. What's your opinion on the Slughorn?
No, like, I think those are reasonable questions. Like you said, he's not saying no. I think that it's kind of in line with Slytherins to have a bent towards self-preservation, and I think that that goes in line with how they're categorized as being cunning, and I think that that was his way of working through the situation, and then once they were basically like, yeah, we have no other options, he was like, okay. I think that was all fair.
Yeah.
Look at how these heads of house dealt with this, right? You have Slytherin being the least, then Ravenclaw, then Hufflepuff, then Gryffindor, right? So McGonagall was like, Harry, you're here, we're fighting, let's do this. Mm-hmm. You have Sprout being like, we can hold him off as long as we possibly can. The second most positive about this was Sprout. Flitwick was like, we can't hold him out forever, right? Like, we're preparing to do this. We can't hold him forever. Like, even that statement from the heads of house were representing their houses appropriately, with Slughorn being, I guess, the least optimistic of like, I don't know that we should be doing this.
Yeah. Well, I think that makes sense from a strategy. I think it's a fair question to say, is this the right strategy? Does this optimize our odds of success?
Mm-hmm. So speaking of leadership and heads of house and all of the above, we get Kingsley with making a speech as well, which I think is just an interesting testament to who he is in this world, that they're like, go say something. like say a few words, But he essentially sets up the battle plans, which a refresher on the battle plans is Flitwick, McGonagall, and Sprout will take a group of fighters to the three highest towers, which are Ravenclaw, Astronomy, and Gryffindor. Remus, Arthur, Kingsley will take groups into the grounds. Fred and George will organize defense of the passageways into the school. And then they go and divvy up the troops. What do we think?
I hate it.
Julie's got thoughts.
I hate a lot of things this chapter. Buckle up, everybody.
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, my question that I have is, with how quickly Kingsley was like, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, did the Order automatically assume at some point there would be a battle at Hogwarts? Because this is a very... It's not an elaborate plan, so I don't want to say elaborate, but, like, it's a very specific plan to figure out in the, like, 10 minutes that they had between finding out that Harry's in the castle and, like, oh, it's go time. So I just want to know, like, did they always assume, and they were like, listen, if there is an attack on Hogwarts, this is what we do.
Do the heads of house and does the headmaster ever, like, put forth an emergency action plan? Like, hey, in the case of, do we have a response?
From what we've seen in the past 6.5 books, no.
No, I agree with you. And what I've said in the past was they don't have an emergency action plan, usually because they've had Albus, Percival, Wulfric, Brian, Dumbledore. That is the name of their emergency action plan. When in doubt, the best wizard ever is in the, castle.
The issue that I have with their battle plan is the taking the groups in, like, onto the grounds. Like, when you look at any, like, medieval castle, you don't leave the castle that you're trying to protect. You stay in and push everyone back. So going out there just makes you open targets to everything and gets you in the way of anything that's being shot from the castle.
Yes and no. Because to them, the castle is the boundaries, too. The outer walls is the boundary. So in their setup, this is like the only battle I can come up with in a real scenario is Alamo. Hogwarts, the castle, is the Alamo. So you have the outer walls, and they'll obviously try to breach those. They got to breach those first. Try to propel them back there, and if you can't, your fallback is the castle. That's your Alamo. You can't give that up.
Yeah, but my issue is that then once you have everyone in the tallest towers of the castle, and you're throwing out spells, how do you know who you hit?
Long range. You're going long distance.
Okay, but eventually you're still defending from that high tower, and you're going to get hit by your own people. To me, it makes no sense to have everyone go out to the grounds and fight them when I feel like you could have been a much stronger force of nature by everyone being in the castle shooting out where the only people you're shooting at are enemies.
Jen?
I'm not a battle plan expert. I'm fascinated by the discussion that's going on here. I'm not sure that this was one part of the chapter that I really sat and thought about.
I love this part of the chapter. This is all, like, I'm like, okay.
You're visualizing the battlefield.
100%.
Like, but it's like you're talking about how you don't think that, since we don't know much about Sprout's spellcasting, like, should she be up in the high tower because, like, you want the best spellcasters there?
I would put her down, actually, in the grounds.
But you're putting Kingsley on the ground.
Who is your
So what happens if Kingsley gets hit versus him being in the castle shooting, like, any of them?
Well, with that,
any of them, though.
You could argue Flitwick's, one of the better duelers, so why not put him on the grounds and flip Kingsley and Flitwick, which you could, except you just saw Flitwick produce insanely complicated magic through a broken window. So you might want him with flexibility and space to do his thing. Whereas Remus and Kingsley, you'd imagine those are your melee guys. Those are your, like, knights. Like, they're going in there and actually combating people in a dueling. Arthur's an interesting pick, too. Because we don't think of Arthur as a combatant. I think of Lupin as a combatant. I think of Kingsley as a combatant. Yeah. I never think of Arthur as one, as great of a wizard as I am sure he is. That's an interesting pick to me, to have a leader go into the grounds.
I just kind of wish that instead it was more people up in various towers and then someone preparing for the eventual breach of the castle.
That's late game, though. You don't want to start off with everybody up on you. You have nowhere to go. You have to start with pushing them out, and then as they advance, you have a place to fall back. If you start in the castle, you have nowhere to fall back to.
I don't like it.
Okay. What do we think about Fred and George organizing the defense of the passageways into the school?
To me, that makes the most sense.
Yep.
They're the ones with the best knowledge.
They have the best
of
knowledge of it, yep.
But I am shocked that wasn't thought of before this.
Right.
Like, no one was like, hey, no one's really sneaking in or out, and, like...
They did. The Death Eaters had defenses set up around them.
Yeah, but
I thought that all the passageways were closed, so...
They had curses on them, too. Yeah, they were
But it's like,
defended.
why wouldn't you already, like, pretty much put your own hexes on there?
I'm assuming that's what Fred and George are about to go do. They're going to take some students and go do that as well. Meanwhile, Harry has to go and actually do his job.
I love that part where McGonagall's like, aren't you supposed to be doing something? And he's like, oh, right, totally forgot, my bad.
So we get an interaction with Harry and the Grey Lady, and we get a whole backstory on the Grey Lady. What do we think of this backstory?
I just feel like the Grey Lady story is just such an aggressive story for something that takes up, like a page and a half. Like, I needed to be better than my mother, so I stole her diadem, and then I ran away with it. And, oh, by the way, there was this Baron who was totally obsessed with me. So when my mom was dying, she sent him to come find me, and then he killed me.
Jen,
it's very dramatic.
Does this count as couples therapy or family therapy?
Both?
That's a good... I think both.
Both?
It's got to be
They're
both.
having concurrent therapy sessions going on. Okay.
Yes. So I have a question. So this entire time that Harry has been at Hogwarts and has known people in Ravenclaw and has talked to people across the houses and has lived in a castle haunted by ghosts, and no one has ever mentioned that the Grey Lady was related to Ravenclaw? Does she not talk to anyone?
This story specifically, she's seemingly only told to two people.
Right.
Yeah. And it just feels very, like, shoved in. You needed a story, and you didn't realize until chapter 31 that you never, like, laid any breadcrumbs for it.
There's just a lot of sketch throughout this whole interaction, because I think a lot of people jump to the Bloody Baron being, like, the villain, and he certainly is a villain. Please do not mistake me on this. He's obviously comes off very abusive, very violent, and very dangerous. I don't think Helena Ravenclaw comes off super great either in this whole story.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a convoluted kind of circumstance.
Also, like, because I know we talk about how everyone needs therapy all the time, but, like, also, they're both house ghosts. Could you imagine, like, that's your ending, and then you're like, cool, and I'm stuck with you for eternity?
Yes! Yep. Can we talk about that for a second? So, the idea of you're both becoming ghosts, the Grey Lady and the Bloody Baron. So now you're spending literal eternity with each other. Let's, for sake of a better term, your stalker who wanted to be your romantic partner, and the person who killed you, and then the person you killed yourself about or for. You're spending eternity with it, like, and no one has noticed awkwardness amongst the house ghosts before.
And also, like, as the Grey Lady with, like, this much baggage with, like, your mom, and you're like, you know what? I'm gonna be a ghost. I'm gonna be the house ghost of my mom's house.
The one thing that bothers me about this part in the chapter is just that I feel like it's entirely too short.
Yes.
It just goes from, like, I need information on this thing. I have a troubled backstory. But here's all of the information all at once, very quickly, and then here's
a really quick exposition dump.
Yeah, it's just, it feels lazy.
Yeah.
For how hard every other Horcrux was to find, this just feels like, oh, I've only ever told one other person, and I'm just going to tell you everything because you said you didn't want to wear it. It feels like some bad riddle to me.
Well, a bad riddle is who she told in the first place. And that goes back to Tom Riddle being the charming, suave, can get information without even really trying, it seems like, because he's just got, for whatever you want to call it, a talent, I guess, of doing that. But, and I'm just going to throw this out there and see what you guys think of it, but, Nearly Headless Nick has lamented being a ghost and how everybody overlooks him. Even Harry coming to him for help. He's like, oh, you need ghostly help. I'm your ghost, right? And then Harry immediately just like, I need this other ghost. And we kind of laugh it off as like Nearly Headless Nick being kind of quirky and kind of like ha-ha jokey. But I think with Nearly Headless Nick and Moaning Myrtle, you get an undertone of everybody kind of just sloughs off the ghosts and ignores the ghosts. Yeah. And they get used to them being like around the castle, but not a part of the castle. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So people like Dumbledore who have their head in the sky, or Harry who's just going about his business and getting caught up in all kinds of chaos, literally just, they're not there until you actually need them. And that's what Nearly Headless Nick was kind of complaining about, of like, oh, you need me. This is great. What can I help you with? Oh, you don't need me. Great. You know? And I think that might be a sadder answer of like, people just don't think of the ghost. That's kind of what the Grey Lady compares to as well. She's like, no one knows I'm here. And then they need something from me. And then they come to me. You're coming to me about my diadem. You're coming to me about my mother, aren't you? You don't need me for anything. You don't want to talk to me. You want my mother. And so clearly these ghosts all have a little bit of a resentment towards students and people that have come through because they're forgotten about quite often. That's the vibe I get. Yeah. But anyway, Harry obviously sets off for the Horcrux, and we get some start of the battle. First of all, Harry ends up reuniting with Ron and Hermione, and Ron had an idea. What do we think about Ron's idea?
Man, Ron's really coming in clutch lately.
He's on a roll.
Yeah. And he also remembers the randomest tidbits of, like, information. Like, a couple of chapters ago where he's like, yeah, well, that's why you can't make food appear. Yep. Like, Ron, what happens inside your brain? Yeah. Okay, but imagine being Hermione listening to Ron just hissing at a door and being like, no, that wasn't right. Hold on. Can you imagine being Hermione being like, have you completely lost it? Can we be serious for a second?
I do wish we had seen Hermione destroy the cup, though. I wonder if there was any particularly gnarly magic that went along with that destruction, but we don't get any details about it.
That would have been neat.
Yeah. I also really like that the destroying of the Horcruxes, I feel like, is the most equitable that the trio has been in their end goal throughout the whole series. Because it's usually they all help Harry, and Harry's like, it has to be me. It can't be you. It has to be me. I am the chosen one. I must do it. And then, like, Harry doesn't actually do it by himself. Everyone helps him. But I feel like this, like, the destroying of the Horcruxes is the first time that we see Harry being like, whoa, you guys did it too? Cool. Up top. Let's go. Go team.
He's excited for it.
Yeah. And then he's not sitting there going like, why would you risk doing something like that without me there? Like, he's just like, oh, you took care of that? Great. Check it off the list. Let's go.
Yep. Moving on to the next thing. Yep. The next thing is the Room of Requirement. We enter the room for the first time in this chapter, and it's generally empty except for Ginny, Tonks, and Neville's grandmother. What do we think about this assortment of people that's in the Room of Requirement?
What a weird assortment.
It is a weird assortment.
Very random. I love Neville's grandmother, though.
She's great.
She is awesome.
Tonks ends up going to look for Lupin into the grounds, and Harry tells Ginny to leave, which then leaves the trio. And they're like, okay, we also have to leave the room so this thing can change up. And Ron stops them, and he's thinking about the house elves. And Harry's like, to fight? And Ron's like, no. We gotta get them out of here. We can't have them fight for us. And then you get a moment with Ron and Hermione.
Aww.
Ugh.
Wow. Two very different reactions. What do we think about it?
I mean, I think it's sweet that he's sitting there and he's thinking about the house elves. I don't necessarily know that this is, like, the time for them to have a little romantic moment, but I think it's nice that Hermione acknowledges it.
To me, it's just, like, I get it that tensions are high, your adrenaline's rushing, you know, you're literally in a life and death situation. But when Ron is like, we can't ask the house elves to fight for us. And Hermione is like, now's a great time to make out with you. You're amazing. Like, what?
Wow, such romantics that we have here. Such romantics.
I thought it was nice that Hermione acknowledged what he was saying and that, you know, she gave him a little kiss or a hug or whatever.
A little kiss?
No, but that's my next point of, like, they were making out and Harry's like, I really need your guys' attention right now. And, like, that was the part where I was like, okay, that's fair. Like, I don't really know
to
how
Julie's
much
point,
making
this
out...
has been building, though, because of Ron's constant, like, pickup on a lot of what Hermione has been on him about since book 1.
Yes.
Yeah, and, like, I kind of get it, but to me it's very, like, I read it, and every single time I, like, roll my eyes at it. Like, I mean, even Harry's like, do you think you could just hold it in until we've got the diadem?
I love that.
Harry gets very sassy.
I love sassy Harry.
I feel like he almost turns into, like, a New Yorker at some point through this. He's like, there's a war going on here!
Boy.
You know, like,
Hey.
kind of that. Yeah.
Hey, I got a Horcrux to find.
Sorry for everybody in New York listening to this and just hating us.
Why am I allowed on this podcast?
They exit the room. They find Ginny and Tonks firing curses. Aberforth is running past, leading a group of students, yelling that the Death Eaters have brought giants too. And Tonks asks about Lupin. Lupin was dueling Dolohov, and he hasn't seen Lupin since. What do we think?
When I was reading it, I'm just like, oh yeah, that tracks. Like, oh yeah, like, you know, he's off doing whatever. I'll see you later.
I mean, think about how much you have to, like, jump back and forth in these situations.
Yeah.
Like, we saw it in the Department of Mysteries that, like, yeah, you're dueling a person, but, like, if someone gets knocked over or knocked out or whatever, and then you're like, oh, I got 2 now, let's go. Oh, somebody went after you already? All right, back to you. Yeah. One of my questions that I have, at what point do the good guys go lethal? Because you know that the Death Eaters are coming in, and they don't care who dies.
This is where my Slytherin comes out. If they're invading the castle, all bets are off.
In the conversation we discussed a little earlier with McGonagall and Slughorn, part of that discussion was the Gryffindor going, Horace, you're free to leave if you want, but if you stand in our way or take up arms against us, we duel to kill. That was the Gryffindor's instruction. And Horace, who's taught with McGonagall for a long time, is like, Minerva, like, I'm your colleague here.
But, like, when I'm saying lethal, I mean, like, when are they throwing out, like, killing curses?
I think they're going from the get.
I think they should be, yeah.
I mean, I agree that they should be, but, like, you see everything that they're doing that, you know, we're throwing out curses and hexes, and, like, later we see McGonagall with, like, moving desks with legs or whatever, and it's like, I feel like they're currently acting in, like, lethal is if we knock you over and you crack your head open on the stairs, not like, it doesn't seem like anyone's actually aiming to kill.
I agree with you. It doesn't sound like they are. I think that they should be.
Yes.
I only disagree in that when there's more than just one combatant, one spell isn't often enough. So you're trying to do innovative magic that the other side can't predict what's going to happen. Yeah. So, and if you need multiple, one spell isn't enough when you have a bunch of people coming at you, hence the horde of desks that can cause problems.
Which also just makes me think of Beauty and the Beast when Gaston and the villagers, like, storm the castle.
Yes.
And all, like, the wardrobe.
I mean...
Do you think that's where J.K. Rowling got this from?
I hope so.
She's watching Beauty and the Beast in the background.
She's taking notes.
As ridiculous as that is, yes! Yeah, that's kind of the idea. But you're trying to throw innovative magic at it, too. That's not to say, like, really powerful magic, though it's not the killing curse, isn't debilitating or crippling or, I mean, would knock you out of a fight and take you out of this thing. Yeah. So, I mean, there's more ways than one to do it, but McGonagall said from the start of this, we're dueling to do real, unchangeable, permanent harm to these people. So, yeah.
I do want to talk Tonks a bit, because I love Tonks, but I am so conflicted about her being here in general. And I'm also conflicted about her not originally being here. Because, you know, just because she's a mother doesn't mean that her sole responsibility is her kid.
Says the mother.
Yes. I just think that society in general puts a lot of pressure on, like, if you're the mom, obviously, you're the one watching your kids. You're the one taking them to doctors, to activities, to whatever. I am very conflicted about her coming to the castle as well, because on the one hand, like, you need all the help you can get, but, like, she is clearly there for the wrong reasons and is more of a liability than anything else. Because anytime we see her in this chapter, it's, where's Lupin? Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? And then they're like, oh, I think he was over there. And she's like, all right, sorry, Ginny, bye. All right, sorry, guys, bye. And it's like, you're not there to help the fight. You're there to find Lupin. And so you are now more of a liability than an asset.
Hot take. I think Lupin should have been the one to stay home.
Ooh, that is a hot take. Why?
I think Tonks is probably more skilled.
As an oar?
As an oar.
I would give you that.
I think that she's also, to your point, more focused on finding Lupin than she is on actually running around dueling. And I think that someone should have stayed with the kid. And I think if you're looking at both parents skill-wise, I think Tonks is the one that goes and Lupin is the one that should stay.
I actually will agree with you on that, because when you figure Lupin does not have as much experience dueling. Like, no, you're having him come fight because, like, of course he can fight. He's a guy. He can fight. Sure he can. He can come back and he can fight, and Tonks can stay home. When Tonks is trained as an oar, she's more in practice, and she can change her appearance, which I think would be an asset in this situation.
Yep.
I don't disagree that Tonks is probably more skilled even. I don't even disagree with that. And I think in this war, you need to have, putting Teddy aside, you need both of them. You need both of them to raise arms, honestly. But let's not forget, though, Lupin did participate in the first Wizarding War. Tonks was too young to participate in
Okay,
that.
but at this point, the war was almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not like he doesn't have any combat experience. He
No,
does have
But
combat.
he hasn't used it in
old.
20 years.
Yeah.
It's not like he's not doing anything.
No, but he's not. It's
Like,
not to the level of
Lupin's not
McGonagall
sitting on
or
the
Flitwick.
couch. I mean, come on.
We don't see what he's doing. We don't see how much he's in
And
serious situations.
Most of what he did for the Order was helping with werewolf
Which was an
stuff
extraordinarily dangerous situation that he put himself
that he had to do without magic because the werewolves didn't want the magic. So he has been out of practice in a combat situation for
Hot
20
take
years.
on Lupin. He's had a lot. I'm not disagreeing that Tonks is extraordinarily skilled. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, you guys are a little cold on Lupin here. Okay, so we do eventually get the trio re-entering the Room of Requirement. And this is to the Room of Hidden Things, which is just a really cool idea. I know a couple of us on the podcast throughout the time with the Room of Requirement have said how cool of a room this specific version of the Room of Requirement would be to wander around. What have students discarded or tried to hide or whatever? It's a really cool idea. However, they run into Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle. And, in previous chapters, we got everybody looking to Neville as like, Neville, you might know the most about this room than anybody, maybe. Draco is also going to lay claim to that because he knows this room fairly well as well.
Yep.
What do we think about the interaction with Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle and all of the events in the Room of Hidden Things?
I think it's really funny that Voldemort has thought that no one is going to find this room and that he's the only one that found this room.
When there's a bunch of other stuff in it.
Not only that's actually, okay. I wasn't even going for that, but that's a wonderful point.
That's a very valid point.
Super valid point. I was going to say there were already 2 people in the same year at Hogwarts that found it on different occasions. So like, it can't be that hard to find. Like,
well, to be fair, Harry also has that same almost delusion earlier in the chapter when they're going to the Room of Requirement, and he's like, he pretty much says like, Dumbledore's too noble to ever have thought of this. I'm like, Dumbledore knows about the Room of Requirement.
Yeah.
You think he's never thought of something like that and has like wandered in there?
I don't know if he ever delved into the true depths of what the Room of Requirement is capable of.
I feel like he would have.
The Draco, Crabbe, Goyle of it all. What do we think about those 3 Slytherins
Yay.
entering the fray? and how Crabbe and Goyle might have changed since we've last seen them.
They're a lot more aggressive than before.
A lot more confident.
They're a lot more confident. They're not taking orders from Malfoy, which, cool. They're also idiots.
Yeah, they're a lot dumber when they
Still
actually
dumb.
speak.
Yeah, right. They really should have kept their
I feel
mouths
like
shut.
especially Goyle. Like, I feel Crabbe has, like, caught up a little bit and is like, okay, no, I'm becoming who I am.
Until he casts Fiend Fire and then loses control of the situation very quickly.
Okay, he has a touch overconfident spell. A
Yeah,
little arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah.
So this was something that I actually didn't like this section of it, and I didn't like the section of it for the same reason I didn't like the discussion earlier with the Grey Lady about it. All of it felt too convenient. Mm-hmm. The three showing up, of course it's Harry going down the right aisle to find the tiara. Of course he finds it super quickly. Of course it's in the same place that he left it.
Of course the trio split up.
Of course the trio splits up. It's like, it felt very...
Cliched?
It felt very cliched. It felt like it was just such a rushed Horcrux. Like, we spent so much time with almost every other Horcrux. Even the ring, which we didn't, like, see any... we didn't see Dumbledore find it, but we spent so much time going into the history of it and going into the backstory of it and learning about all of these things. And it's like, within the span of a chapter...
We got a book's worth of...
We got all of these things just condensed into, like, the most, like... He goes to the Grey Lady. She tells him what it is right away. He goes into the Room of Requirement. It's right there where he left it. It's like, this feels boring almost.
At least we got the setup for this, whereas the movie had to alter everything about it because they screwed it up. So in this, he goes into the Room of Requirement to actually put the book down, hence he sees it. And that's why he's able to track his way back here. In the movie, he never actually does that. Ginny puts the book away in the movies. So Ginny would know where the diadem might be. He's got to, like, sense the Horcrux and, like, be one with the Horcrux to find it, which is ridiculous. But
it's internally consistent. It's just not very satisfying.
It's a little rushed.
Yeah, it just all, like, you get the backstory, and then you get the, like, wait a minute. I know where I've seen that before, and I know exactly where everything is in this room that I used that one time.
Yep. I also didn't like the aspect of it where, so after the Fiend Fire is going through and the trio's trying to escape it all and they're climbing onto brooms, they're flying around. See,
the brooms is what I thought was a little convenient. That's the one part of this where I was like, oh, you're surrounded by fire and there happens to be brooms.
That was the one part of it that I actually bought because I'm like, it's a room full of junk.
Yeah.
I'm like, of course there's brooms
That's
somewhere.
the one part
like,
I thought was like, wow, that's super convenient that in this whole big room of stuff, you get surrounded by fire and there's the brooms.
I just kind of pictured like there's a ton of brooms in the room because it's just a room full of
Unless, what do you think of this then? They need something. It's the Room of Requirement.
Mm-hmm.
They need like a way to escape. Does the room then manifest those three brooms there? As like, did they pull it from...
Well, why would they only give two? I see what you're saying.
Because it might know Hermione's not good on a broom. It might be that intuitive. I know, that's a stretch. I'll give you that. I'll give you that's a stretch, but...
I like where you're going with it. Okay, let me rephrase what I'm going to say. I think that that's what should have happened. It doesn't feel like that's actually what happened.
Yeah.
If that works. But so the point I wanted to make though was I don't like that in that entire sequence when they're on the brooms and they're flying around, he happens to spot the tiara being flung up into the air by the fire beasts.
Mm-hmm.
That feels, again, it's so contrived. It's like, okay, of course that's the object that you need that's being flung up. Not anything else. Not anything in this entire room full of like all of these items that are just
they're all getting flung
on
up
top of each other. It felt, it felt lazy.
I understand that, and I'm not gonna like quibble on that. I got brought back to it's a callback to Quidditch, is what it is. It's her only way to get Quidditch back in. The diadem is a snitch. He's flying on a broom. He's doing what only Harry Potter the Seeker might be able to do. It's like her only way of fitting Quidditch in is how I read it.
She couldn't have done something where it was just on top of a pile of things that was surrounded by fire and he had to swoop in and grab it at the last minute.
Neither of you are buying the Quidditch
No, I think that that's a good analogy to it. I think that's what it's meant to highlight. I think it's lazy. I think the way that she wrote it is lazy.
Yeah, well, and I think also, like, throwing the Quidditch in there is just...
Why?
Yeah, it's like, to me, there's no...
Because it's a major staple of the series, and this is... Throughout this book, the 7th book, there have been little nods throughout the entire book to points throughout the series.
Did this need it?
No.
Where else are you going to put it?
I don't think you need it at all. There's no... I don't think if that wasn't in there, I don't think anyone's going to be like, man, there wasn't any Quidditch in book 7.
Yeah. Just write that he's such a great seeker that he knows how to accelerate and decelerate when he's weaving
or
in
see
and
a
out
small
of the
shiny
thing.
object that's maybe not clearly visible, especially in a smoky fire
and then
room.
swoop down and grab it. But this whole thing about it being tossed up at the right time just felt contrived to me.
Yeah, well, and I feel like it's not a very, like, satisfying end to a Horcrux, because it's like, you just learned about it, you just learned the history of it, then you went, oh, hey, I remember that thing, and then it's like, as soon as you see it, it's just gone. Whereas all these other Horcruxes, like, you have to go through so many different, like, trials and tasks and, like, mental drain, and instead you had to talk to Malfoy and his 2 idiot friends, and you got to make jabs about, like, oh, so whose wand do you have?
But even
like,
even that interaction between Harry, Ron, and Hermione and Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle is an allusion to their whole rivalry throughout all of the books.
Again, I do not disagree with you with any of the symbolism that she is trying to pull, and I think that those are really nice connections to make. I just thought it was really poorly done, and it felt lazy to me.
Any other thoughts on that whole interaction between the 6 school rivals?
I am not mad at all about Harry going back and attempting to save them.
I like it.
Yeah, I'm not sitting there, like, jumping for joy going, like, Harry saves the day! But, like, I feel like usually in situations like this, I would be mad at Harry for, like, you know, bro, you have things to do. Like, let the bad guys, like, you know, figure their own stuff out, especially when they started the fire. Let them figure out their own problems. But I'm not mad about it this time. I kind of like the full circle, like, arc that it gives us with all of them. Of the, like, you all have essentially tormented each other for 7 years, and at the end of the day, like, you don't see each other as enemies, but rather as, like, equals and still worth saving. And the fact that after they're saved, like, it's not like they get down and then, like, Malfoy, like, punches Harry in the face. He's just kind of like, okay, well, this is awkward, so cool, and, I guess bye? Do I have to say goodbye? Are we supposed to hug it out? Can I just leave? Like, we good?
Well, Crabbe gets caught up in the fire, so he dies.
Yeah.
Goyle is unconscious.
Yeah.
Draco's been, like, the most reasonable one.
Yeah.
Of the 3, obviously. So I think he's more willing to be like, okay, right now, we're good. Let's get out of this, number 1, and then we'll figure everything else out after.
Well,
Goyle, if he's conscious, what does he do? Does he try to still fight it, or does he try to just go with them and get out?
I think he would just try to get out. I don't think he would fight it, because there's still that realization of I would be dead. I would not be here. And I think that there would still be the
survival instinct.
Yeah, like they just kind of like look at each other, and they don't even give like a courtesy nod. They like look at each other and do the like, well, this is awkward, so bye.
So they leave the room of requirement, and chaos. The battle outside of Hogwarts has now breached, and it is getting closer and closer and closer to the hallways of Hogwarts. So much so that we now have combatants fighting in the hallways. And the first pair of combatants that we see are Percy and Fred.
I love this reunion. It is the one thing in this chapter that I absolutely adore. Like, I love that Percy is back in the fold, that Percy is standing next to Fred, who I would argue is probably, I mean, the twins in general would be who Percy would have, like, a lot of tension with as far as siblings are concerned. Mm-hmm. And I love that in this moment, like, Percy is not just back home, but he's, like, back as a Weasley. He makes a joke, which when in the entire series have we ever seen Percy crack a joke? Also, I just need a moment to appreciate that he turns Pius into a sea urchin. Of all of the magic, like, he doesn't try to, like, bind him up or knock him into a wall. Instead, like, talk about the most, like, Fred and George-esque thing to do.
Yep.
Is for Percy to turn the Minister of Magic. It's this clever, like, play on words that's, like, ridiculous when you think about it. And coming from Percy, of all people, like, I think this is just such a great moment and, like, Weasley family reunion. Even if it's not the whole Weasley family there. But, like, it's such a... I love it.
It's cute.
And this goes back to kind of the magic conversation we were having. Like, not everything has to be a killing curse. This is a devastating curse.
Yep.
You're transfigured into a motionless, small thing that can't defend itself. Like,
But, you know, you're a delicacy if you're eaten, so... Also, can you imagine, like, in the aftermath of this battle, you're walking around and you're like, what?
See, I was thinking someone lost a shoe and, like, accidentally steps on this thing with, like, the spikes. I'm like, ah!
Well, I'm just thinking, imagine you're walking through and, like, Slughorn's like, how did this get here? I should bring it back to the storage room. Like,
You get used in a potion later? Like, yeah.
no one's gonna think of it, like, no one's gonna see that and be like, oh, that's clearly a person. Hold on a second.
I just, like, I had in my mind, like, after the battle is over and people are walking around the grounds and, like, trying to figure it out, and there's just this little sea urchin in the back, like, slowly moving across the floor.
I imagine him, like, hopping.
Yeah, just...
It's stellar magic, because he does this in the... I mean, can you imagine transfiguring a person into a... Like, that's
And
impeccable
being witty
magic.
about it.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's...
Yeah.
If we ever forget how talented Percy is, this is a phenomenal example of why he was the top of his class and why he was recruited so hard.
So, I will say, though, that, like, it's not necessarily forgetting that Percy's talented. I don't think it's ever really shown that he's talented. Like, yes,
It's
he's
just
had
told.
boys,
It's told
he's
to you.
top of the class, but, like, think of all of the people that you know who aren't necessarily smart, but they're valedictorian because they can read a book and they can execute.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's always how Percy has been portrayed, is that he's not necessarily talented. He just knows how to get the grades and knows how to, you know, brown nose the teachers and be the top of the class. But this is the first time that it's like,
we're being shown
wow,
it. Yeah, we're being shown
he's
it instead of told.
Talented.
He's very book smart. He's very studious. That's what we see of him.
He got all his OWLs and he got his newts and all that, and those come with practical exams, but we don't see those practical exams.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, for sure. But the side of the castle got blown open, and they see that one red-headed individual is motionless.
I hate it. I just completely flipped. I went from loving this whole thing, and Fred dying to me is lazy writing. I hate it. It's lazy. I mean, statistically speaking, a Weasley had to die in this book. There's too many of them for at least
odds
one
are,
of them to not
playing
like,
the percentage.
I mean, it's true though. Like,
right.
I think it would be even lazier and more of a cop-out if there aren't any significant casualties.
Oh,
There
has to be.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my point, is like, you need to knock out someone from the Weasley family.
Who would you have killed then?
I think Ron actually would have been.
Ooh.
That would have been a big one.
Okay, my choice goes to Ron just because I feel like a hit to the trio. Percy, to me, makes no sense to kill because I think it's a cheap shot. He finally, like, comes back to the family and then
That'd be harsh.
dies in...
You just had that reunion and then you rip them right away?
Yeah. But it also feels too much of a, like, well,
Whiplash?
like, no one's going to care. Because everyone's going to go, well, Percy, you were a jerk. Like, I don't care that you're the one that dies. And to the same extent, like, we're not connected
The
enough.
reader or the characters?
The reader.
Fair enough. Okay. Readers have such an emotional connection to the twins. So taking away a twin, I think, does give an emotional impact. Because it's like, I can't believe a twin is gone. Because that's you can't have one without the other.
It feels like a very lazy pick to make an impactful death.
I have mixed feelings on this. I like the suddenness of the death because that feels more in line with what you would expect when you're in the middle of a battle.
I agree with that.
It's not he's there one moment, gone the next.
He's making a comment on a joke.
Mm-hmm. He's making a comment on a joke. It's very, it's
they
kind of
just
serious.
won their battle.
Yeah. When Sirius got killed. I like that. I like that it's a very realistic, here one moment, gone the next kind of thing. I don't know how I feel about it being Fred the character. I'm not sure.
You don't think that it's more hyper emotional because, again, Fred just embraced Percy. He's the one that officially welcomed him back into the family, and now Percy's holding Fred, being like, no, Fred, no, shaking his brother, Ron kneeling beside them.
But that's still his old, Percy's still the older brother. It would happen with any of the younger siblings. It's going to be that same way. As an older sibling, you never expect that your younger sibling is going to die before you.
Sure, yeah. But Fred literally just extended the olive branch back to the family.
I don't see it as, no.
No.
Wow, okay. And no one likes the line of Fred's eyes stared without seeing the ghost of his last laugh still etched upon his face. No one likes that line either. That's a emotional impact line.
It's fine.
I like it. I just don't like that it was Fred that died. I feel like it was a cheap choice. I love the twins, and I feel like they add so much to the series, from comic relief to actually being really intelligent and pushing things along.
Businessmen,
but, yes.
And yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I feel like as far as a major death is concerned, I feel like it was a cheap pick.
Any other random thoughts, comments, concerns about the chapter that you have before we wrap it up?
How did we feel about the diadem getting broken by Fiendfire?
The actual description of it dying is pretty insane. With it bleeding, I
thought that was cool.
Yeah. It's like a dark ooze that comes out of it, and then Harry hears the distant scream
of it. Yep.
Which is ooh, that's really interesting. I would have loved, just for me personally, even though I guess there's no way to have made it work that I can think of at least right now, someone to wear it and see what it does to you. I would love to see that effect, because clearly it's somewhat sentient if it lets out a little scream.
I feel like the Fiendfire was just, it was convenient.
I think the real question is, how do we feel about Crab technically knocking off a Horcrux?
I honestly, so there's a lot of things that I liked about this chapter the first few times I read it. Reading it this time, it just felt lazy.
Yeah.
All of it. Even the ending with, the death. I don't know that I feel like it shouldn't have been Fred, but it feels like it's just so much in one chapter.
It's a lot in one chapter,
yeah,
for sure.
But it felt like it was a lot in the sense of she had a list of things that she wanted to accomplish before the end of the book, and she was like, I'm on chapter 31. I better get some of this done. And then check. That was my feeling.
I will say that I like that the irony of Crab was the one who was let's kill Harry. Who cares? Voldemort just wants him dead. And then he's the one that kind of helps inch towards killing Voldemort. I do kind of like that.
It's a little irony.
That is nice.
I like that irony.
I guess, shockingly, since I'm the host of this thing, I feel like I'm the Harry Potter stan here, where I actually I liked this chapter. I thought it was action-packed. I liked the battle setup. I liked how they orchestrated. I liked the chaos of the scenes of battle, because like you said, Jen, I thought it was fairly realistic in that you're focused on one thing, and then you get hit from something from the side that you never even saw, and that's how you go out, and it's unfair, but that's how that works. And the emotional impact at the end, it still leaves on a cliffhanger, because you're still trying to turn the page, figuring out what's going to happen next. I liked a lot of those callbacks, the shots of Draco versus Harry, and the Crabbe and Goyle and Ron and Hermione, and I liked the allusion to Quidditch. So I picked up on a lot of that, and I liked it. But yeah, so I guess I'm a little of a differing opinion than you two on just the general state of the chapter. But I love the end of this book, because it's a screaming roller coaster. we will wrap it up here. Thank you for listening through the whole episode. Let us know what your thoughts are on all of the takes and opinions from Mollie and Elizabeth to Julie and Jenn and my own. And let us know by leaving a comment on Spotify, Blue Sky, YouTube, or on Instagram. You can find all of our socials at Hogwarts a Pod. You could also participate in the poll. I will have a really rough time figuring out a poll for this chapter because so much stuff happened. But there will be a poll, so please participate in that. All of our polls are up for a very long time. We love seeing those results, so please participate in them. And with that, we will have another very busy, very chaotic chapter next week for you. With that, we'll end it here. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Hogwarts, a podcast. If you like what you've heard, please click the subscribe button on your preferred podcasting app and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Hogwarts a Pod.